capital markets point of view, how are we seeing blockchain technology being adopted within the capital markets realm? Is there a view from the authority on what they see in regards to this technology? Is it a positive? Is it something we're able to embrace?
So thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. Maybe I'll first talk about what Capital Markets Authority is and what our mandate is. So really our mandate is to regulate the capital markets, to ensure that we develop the capital markets, but while we are doing this, to make sure that we are protecting the investor. So whatever we do ultimately is to ensure that our investor who's coming to play in that market is protected. So in that regard, I think for us in the capital markets, we see opportunities in terms of use cases for blockchain technology. And the things that we see, for example, is around the settlement of trades. We believe that the blockchain technology can encourage faster transactions in that it reduces the counterparty risk. Yeah? We also think that with that will come reduced costs, and also we think it will come with increased efficiency, particularly in terms of settlement of trades. We also think that in terms of, it might facilitate automated execution. So if you have smart contracts that are based on blockchain technology, we also think that, again, that will be around trade execution and settlement. We think that is a use case, again, for blockchain technology. We also think that it will come with enhanced security, yeah? And for us, these are the things that we like to see in the spaces that we are dealing in. You're dealing with people's money, people's investments, and we believe that blockchain technology will bring a bit of enhanced security. Andrew talked about tokenization of currently the act that we have does actually give a leeway for us to regulate any new assets that come in that space, as long as they meet the characteristic of a security. So if you have any innovation that meets the definition of a security, there are provisions within the Capital Markets Act that will allow for that product to be licensed, and therefore whoever is issuing that product also to be licensed. And maybe just to put clarity, at capital markets, we will not regulate the technology, but we will regulate the products that come out that as a result of the technology. But for us to prepare for this really as capital markets, we will need internal capacity. We don't have the capacity internally right now, so there's need to grow capacity and knowledge around the blockchain technology, and probably that is one of the things that when people don't know about something, they try to keep away from it. And then there will also be need to sensitize the public about this, what are the risks, because for us we believe that an investor who's informed is already a protected investor. So even as these kind of products come into the market, it will be important for us to be able to educate them. And then, of course, all this will need collaboration with stakeholders. We can't do this on our own. So really, collaboration is key for us. And yeah, so we are looking forward to people coming up with new ideas and then we'll see how we can support them.
Thank you very much. Josephine, just to now piggyback from what you have shared, it seems as if CMA is proactive and is interested in blockchain, but there are still murmurs that the regulators fear, have a phobia of blockchain. Is this still the case? We need to address and reassure the audience today. Is there a fear of blockchain as a technology, as an application we can have in investment products?
As I said, naturally, anything that is new, you will fear it. Remember when COVID came, yeah? We were even wearing 2 masks. But I'm looking around here, but then COVID is still around. But I'm seeing here, no one is bothered. It's because now we've gotten used to the COVID and we know, yeah, you can drink your lemon, you can get treated.
Yeah.
Similarly with new technologies, usually the initial reaction is to avoid. What you don't know, you avoid. But I think we have passed that stage of avoiding. There is no doubt that the technology has come and it is here to stay. So the best way then is to learn about it, understand what it is. And to that end, I know that the central bank has a regulatory sandbox, even insurance has a regulatory sandbox. Even us at CMA, we are putting in place a regulatory sandbox just to encourage people to bring their products. We study them together, we understand the risks, we will understand what are the areas we need to regulate. So I think we are now in that stage we are learning and we are open to people bringing new technology for us to understand.
Okay. Thank you very much. Andrew, again, there are murmurs that when new technologies or licenses that carry new technologies are brought to the central bank, it's taking too long to have these coming out. Now, if we are bringing in the aspect of blockchain, does the central bank have adequate skill set, capacity, knowledge to interpret, review, and ultimately guide on the adoption of these technologies within the payment space? What has been done? What is different today compared to yesterday?
First of all, we don't regulate technology. We don't regulate technology, and that is standard. But to your question, in terms of capacity, there is no doubt that capacity enhancement is an ongoing question. These are new technologies. There are very few people who can rightly claim to be experts in blockchain. Maybe given the attendance today, probably 90% of the concentration is here. So there are very few people who can rightly claim to be experts in blockchain technology, and that is a fact. So the central bank is building capacity, and that's why I'm here. We want to engage with the market, we want to engage with the practitioners so that we're able to especially harness the opportunities that are coming with emerging technologies, but also to get you, the innovators, to think about risk. Okay, we want you to think about the risk. It is very, very good to talk about innovation, which we are very happy to embrace, but given our mandate as a central bank, naturally, we have to go back and say, okay, very good, but can we pause a bit and look at what could go wrong? So in terms of capacity, the central bank is always aiming at building capacity for staff, and that enables staff to fully embrace, fully appreciate the emerging innovations, but without losing that primary aspect, which is, like I said, for us, we aim to move with the slowest paced individual. So we must protect the slowest mover. We must ensure that risks are adequately managed. We must ensure that the technology or the products do not introduce unnecessary risks to the sector as a whole. So that is generally how we are dealing with this. The question of delays in processing, that's partly because we must understand what we are licensing, but also make sure that you don't introduce unnecessary risks to the broader ecosystem.
Andrew, just before you get off the mic, does the central bank care who the individuals are? How do you ascertain that the individuals bringing these technologies to you understand what they are talking about? Are they experts? Is there an audited due diligence that you do? What is it that you look out for in the individuals promoting these technologies and products?
Yes, that question directly speaks to market conduct in terms of protecting the integrity of the financial system. One of the key things we do is to vet individuals. individuals behind not just the technologies, but for every licensed business activity, the central bank undertakes a vetting exercise to protect the integrity of the market, to protect the consumers. My colleague in her opening remarks talked about fraudulent players. People have been scammed in this market. So as a mitigant to that, the central bank usually undertakes a vetting process for all promoters of products. But maybe one thing I didn't mention, and Josephine highlighted it, is that we encourage innovators, we encourage you, the innovators, to bring solutions to be tested under the sandbox arrangement. The sandbox is a beauty in that it gives you access to the live ecosystem, the live environment, but under regulatory oversight and within limited parameters. So we encourage you to come and test with us. There are certain constraints currently regarding how much can be tested, but those are things that we're also trying to address so that we're able to really embrace innovations, especially those that are lying on blockchain rails.
Thank you very much for those insights. Sharifa, turning to you. You've highlighted that the interest of the Financial Intelligence Authority is to protect, detect fraud or misuse of platforms. But as Ugandans, we are very skeptical. We always believe there is a different view from the central government when they have too much access to data. And the concern some of the innovators have is that blockchain or the applications, most of them were designed to minimize government control or oversight. And yet, for a case in most African states, we are looking to exert government oversight. Is this a problem? Is it going to stifle our innovation and adoption? How do we use, is the justification of fraud and misuse sufficient for us to have government oversight in these particular technologies?
Of course we need government oversight. Like my colleague said from the central bank, just like them, at FIA we use a risk-based approach. So we first assess risk of anything before we oversee it. At the moment we have virtual asset service providers regulations, and we've asked the virtual asset service providers, the VASPs, to come and register with us so that we know who are the players. That call has been responded to by just one player. So we've asked politely and kindly right now, but we have sanctions. It's a sanctionable offense not to register with the FIA. So we are not sanctioning anyone right now. We are reaching out and saying, so that you don't come back later and say that you are not informed. And yes, you need government oversight because just like the central bank, we are here to protect Ugandans. Our motto, our flag line is safe money, secure market. We want our Ugandans first to be safe. Maybe I should highlight the cases of fraud that we've dealt with so that you understand the gravity of this issue. Many of you had the case of D9 a while ago, where Ugandans lost, I think, over $2 million. And this was from the most vulnerable populations. Those are the ones that are targeted because people know that these are people who are naive. They're outside education circles. So they target areas which are really, really desperate and vulnerable. So you're taking, literally, this is money for food from people. So yes, you're innovating, you're brilliant, all of these things are wonderful, but people are misusing your innovations and they are defrauding innocent, vulnerable Ugandans. So we have to think of those ones first, the most vulnerable of society, because if the most vulnerable in your society are not protected, that means there's no society to speak of, and that is who government is here for, especially. Yeah? So in our risk-based approach, we want to register you. We want to know who are the players. in this sector. And the FIA has been really, really open. We've had engagements with the association, we've had engagements with other players. We have an MOU with FITSPA because we want to know who are the players and what are they doing. Because we understand there's innovation, we are pro-innovation, we want you to do amazing things, we want you to include our people in this sector, we want them to get faster remittances, faster payments, we want them to get securities, all these beautiful things that blockchain is bringing. But we want them to be getting them safely. We have a risk of money laundering. We have a risk of terrorism financing. You know, terrorism has impacted us. All of us know what happened in Chadondo. How do terrorists get that money? And it's, here we're not talking about big sums when we are talking about terrorism financing. Small sums, anything, even $100, you're facilitating a terrorism. And these faster transactions, especially, that is what now the terrorists use to get financing for their activities. So we are moving slowly because we want to assess the risk. And actually right now we are at the tail end of a risk-based, a risk assessment of this sector in Uganda. And we will invite the association and the members here when we publish that report so that you see what's been happening in this system, and so that you can appreciate as well from our standpoint what is happening and why we are acting the way that we are.
Yeah. Awesome, good stuff. Josephine, I think you can give us a vision from the capital markets point of view. What is your vision in terms of how Uganda can adopt or leverage blockchain technology in our market? And perhaps you could also share with us a call to action. What do you want this audience to take away from today's conversation with the regulators? Are there any 1, 2, 3 points that you believe they should be taking away today based on the conversations we've had?
So thank you. For me, my vision is to see the operations within the capital markets efficient. That is key for us. But also to see vibrancy in our capital markets. And as I mentioned, blockchain technology can be used to create some products that can make our markets more liquid. And we've talked about tokenization. We don't really have any product around that has been tokenized in our market, and we think that is an opportunity. And because then even tokenization allows more people to participate. So that's one of the areas we think that we can actually leverage on that technology. The other is probably around securities. As I talked about the settlement of trades, how can we make that faster? Why must it be that if I'm buying shares or bonds, it's T+2? Why shouldn't it be instant? And I believe that the technology can help us do that. So if the players in the market can adopt some of these technologies, but while they adopt that, they just ensure that it is safe, because ultimately the investor must be protected. And there are measures that can make this technology safe. I think while even the technology has been developed, there are measures that are there in place to ensure that it can be used safely and to the benefit of everyone. So I think it's for the innovators out here to develop their products, bring them to market, and one of our key mandates is to support market development, and we'll support you in whatever way that we're able to in the safety of ensuring that our investors are also safe. And I think last week we had a World Investor Week, and the theme was actually tech-enabled financial inclusion. And that's why we are really looking to technology to grow the financial inclusion in this country in respect to capital markets.
Thank you very much. I've done all the asking for the first session, but I can also invite and open up to the audience to take a few questions. And as usual, Louis, your hand is up. We shall start with the hot tea, and then we will take the juice later. Louis, do you have a mic? Sure. Yes.
On day one, All right, let me just consider and use the mic. I'm going to say this that I've just said without the microphone.
No, it's,
And I'm not going to sugarcoat anything. I think, apart from the Financial Intelligence Authority, all the other financial sector regulators are letting down the ecosystem. Because for me, I'm a lawyer in this space and I can speak practically. Financial Intelligence Authority has done a very good job. They want to register people as accountable persons. But again, why Financial Intelligence Authority is having a hard time is Bank of Uganda, after Financial Intelligence Authority has done a good job, comes up and says the licensed payment systems service providers do not operate with blockchain virtual assets related people. Which means that I cannot do business, even though I want to subject myself to Financial Intelligence Authority, anti-money laundering and all that stuff. Bank of Uganda is making it hard for my clients to open up an account. Now, Capital Markets Authority has been a disaster. I'm sorry, I'm not attacking Josephine as a person. No. I think she's a very proactive person. I think she's a very good person. But there is an institutional culture that is very bad. And I'm sorry to say this, and we have had these discussions with some people in some other areas. The Capital Markets Authority, in my view, should be more forward-thinking. For instance, she has talked about settlements. Just last week, we had Euroclear, DTCC, all of them. They sat down to find a way of actually creating what you call, I don't want to go technical, but they didn't want fragmented payments across the space of securities. That's what DTCC and Euroclear do. Now, let me conclude.
Yes.
And as I conclude, I think the regulators are making it hard for our clients to do business. 6 African countries have laws on this kind of things. So, BOU cannot sit down, Mr. Kaweri. I've frustrated some of my clients. I met you on radio one day, and I told you I've frustrated 5 of my clients in the blockchain space. So when I hear you speak there, I was boiling. I'm like, you know, this theory, eh? But let me say, 6 African countries have laws on this kind of things, and you're not going to reinvent the wheel. So you're not going to sit for 7 years in a working group. We're waiting for the report. I'm waiting for the damn report, but it is not coming. So for me, I would think you guys need to sit around a round table before URA also comes for us, because I'm also hearing rumors that URA is coming for our clients. You get? So if URA wants to get money, you guys, I think you should be a little bit more coordinated in your approach. You are so fragmented, and we are losing out. China, this is actually estimates that we are having about $3.5 million US dollars passing through every quarter. Now, if they want to tax, if you guys don't make it hard for our clients to open accounts, things will go. But for me, I would say that you people are the worst people that ever happened to this space. And I'm sorry to say.
Louis, let me just confirm your line of thought. Is it that we have a regulatory vacuum, or that the existing laws are not working? I was trying just to zone in on what would you want them to do? Put in place a law, or is it that they're not using the existing law well?
It is twofold. The existing law is not there, even though they wanted to use it. That is why, painfully, we came up with a bill, which some of them, by the way, are frustrating. Some of them are frustrating the bill, and when I hear them speak about all this theory, I really get very angry, but I'm not going to go there. Then the other point I'm also trying to drive at is, even in practice, you know, the law has to be put in practice.
Yes.
Without a law, we need a proactive approach. You get? There is no reason why, when I go to Bank of Uganda for a sandbox, they make it very hard for me. Let me give you an example, and just to show you the law. The payments law already exists. There's a client of mine who wanted to use to leverage open banking. I put in that application on behalf of my client in 2023. You get? And along the way, also had some blockchain use cases. I will shock you that those gentlemen and ladies at the payments department, they approached us 1 year later. What are you saying about is it open banking? Okay, can you come and help us? I actually told the client, don't waste time, just go to Nigeria, Mauritius is doing a good job, and leave. So what I'm trying to say is, and in conclusion,
okay,
to your question, is the problem with the law does not give them sufficient powers to really sufficiently do a lot in this space. But even without the law, what we expect is a proactive, united front. So that if Bank of Uganda is saying licensed payment systems operators do not deal with virtual assets, you get? At least they should coordinate with Financial Intelligence Authority and Capital Markets Authority. Because then why I actually agree with the lady from the Financial Intelligence Authority is that she's not going to get people to register with her as accountable persons if they're not allowed to open accounts in Uganda and on RAM with payment system service providers that are being licensed by people, the payments. And then lastly, we're talking about a central bank digital currency. If you guys want to
That's
actually...
the second question.
It is the last. I'm not, sorry, and I don't want to take all your time. I'm very sorry. Reginald, I'm not going to make your guests very angry today. But what I'm trying to say, I realize you're staring at me very intently. But conclusion, okay. Some people have other questions.
Okay, 1 minute.
I read the paper.
Yes.
Thank you very much. I read the paper that they rolled out on the central bank digital currencies.
Yes.
There are people in this ecosystem that can actually assist. But they seem to be taking a top-down approach. Now, what I'm saying is, if those regulators can sit down and make the life of private sector workers or operators in this space comfortable, there will be easier engagements without even engaging people from foreign countries to help them bring together an ecosystem, to help them with the CBDC. So I'm thinking, and I'm going to conclude, we need coordination because they are killing business.
Okay. Thank you very much. Let's give them a minute to gather their thoughts, because that was hot tea. Okay.
Yeah. But I mean, I'm sitting here as capital markets, yes, and Louis has ranted, but he has not said specifically how can we help him. I know that we've been in discussion around the issue of virtual assets, and we actually did communicate that the current law does give a provision for us to recognize a virtual asset as long as it meets the requirement to be categorized as a security. Yes. So when he's ranting a lot, but I'm not getting the one thing that I need to take away to say that this is the specific point of unhappiness which we can address.
Okay. There's a man here who is very, very eager. I don't know if anyone else on the panel wants to respond to Louis.
So we have 3 hands.
Yes.
We are going to take these questions to get 4 hands. We're going to take them once, and then we shall have the panel respond. Given we are pressed for time.
Okay. So, Alan, do you want them to respond first, or should I gather the questions?
Okay. Let's respond to one outstanding issue from Louis, from the central bank, and then we shall take the 4 questions.
Louis, I think for me, you're mixing up a number of issues. For instance, you can't, while virtual assets sit on blockchain rails, the central bank's pronouncement was not on blockchain. And I think when you mix up issues and say the central bank has completely frustrated blockchain because of a circular on virtual assets, you know, there is a little bit of a disconnect in there, because the central bank's pronouncement was very, very clear. The policy objectives were very, very clear, which was mainly around consumer protection. 50% of the Ugandan community is digitally illiterate. And the lady from the FIA has told you how much money has been lost. In fact, I encourage you colleagues to watch the BBC documentary on OneCoin. Uganda is featured in that documentary. OneCoin, the missing crypto coin. Go and watch that documentary, and you will appreciate Louis why the bank took that decision. But also, in terms of stakeholder collaboration, I do agree with you, and that's why we're here. That's why CMA is here. That's why the central bank is here, because indeed we have to collaborate as regulators, and we're not sleeping on the job for information. I should have mentioned earlier that one of the things that the multi-regulators are doing is to actually study application of blockchain in this financial space. A technical committee was set up. They have written a paper, and that paper is to be considered by the CEOs in the Financial Sector Stability Forum. So we're not sleeping on the job, my brother. We are actually very busy in the kitchen working, and the fruits of that effort, hopefully, will be seen in the coming months or weeks. Lastly, on central bank digital currency, this is one of the applications that we think brings out, you know, the benefits of CBDC. And again, you are ranting about the paper. I hope you've read it. This paper is a public document, ladies and gentlemen, and I'll probably share it with Reginald, so that you as innovators can also share your feedback on what you think should be the policy direction for the central bank on this matter. The paper is available on the central bank website, but there is also a questionnaire. But a word of caution though, please don't fill the questionnaire without reading the paper, okay? Take a look at the paper, there is a set of frequently asked questions so that you respond from an informed point of view. Thank you.
All right, Alan, I'm just going to pick up some questions from the audience.
Yes.
What I am going to appeal is we're going to have some house rules. 60 seconds, get to your question. Let's save the ranting for later, okay? Thank you very much. You have 60 seconds, sir, starting now.
All right, my name is Engineer David Lumala. Me, I'm a player in this space. So most of my points have been raised by Louis earlier, but I just want to point to the gentleman from BOU. You see, you operate in bully mode, for starters. You operate in bully mode.
Bully mode.
Yeah. The thing is, concerning the CBDCs, for starters, I'm reading so many things, about Uganda from sources external, not in Uganda. And then I'm wondering where the input of the local Ugandans, because we have the talent here. You see, I'm reading about Temtam, I'm reading about all these companies that are, in the Caymans and, scattered all over the BVI. Exactly. All right. So I'm wondering, what is our input? You've not made enough kind of effort to seek out the different individuals and then the different views to get to talk to us, maybe give you our inclusions, our ideas and suggestions in most of the matters that will do us. Come back and haunt us. Thank you.
He's asking about Ugandan participation.
I can confirm I've responded to the survey of the central bank.
Alan,
I hope,
I'm picking questions from the house. You have 60 seconds starting now.
There are more this side, sir.
My issue, I'm here about trading. I am a full-time crypto trader. Now we are having a challenge. If I have, let's say, $100,000 as my capital, I can pull around 2,000 or 3,000 from the market daily. But when I get that money and I bank it, today, tomorrow, and another day, the bank starts to question, where are you getting this money? When I say the source of my income is trading, they say we don't allow that, and the account is frozen. Immediately, peer-to-peer traders are facing the similar challenge. Whenever they get money on their bank accounts, they are frozen. So I don't know what's going on. We need some clarification about that. If not, they can say you're financing terrorism. So we need something about that.
All right. There's a question over here.
I think for me, the biggest challenge is we are confusing technology and products. Because blockchain technology is like anything, and all the regulators on the panel have confirmed that they are technology agnostic. I think if we take blockchain as any other technology, then the regulator should focus on the products. If you think about it, the biggest volume of financial services or assets, they are all digital. Be it your bank account or bank deposits, it's digital. So when you're saying digital or virtual assets, we are not saying something new. Even the money in your bank account is a virtual asset. So when we begin to look at things in that perspective, you realize that most of even the things that we are prohibiting now are actually allowed, even in our current legal framework. So I think we just need to be creative, even within our current framework. We will find that most of the products we have are actually allowed.
All right. Then I'm hoping I'm coming to you for a question, not a comment. Right? We have one last question there. Sorry.
Mine is a comment.
Yours is a comment, not a question. Sorry. 60 seconds now.
Thank you, Moses. Yeah, my question is directed towards Andrew. I just want to get an understanding of whether, in your view, you feel that cryptocurrencies at some point in the future would be used to carry out monetary policy actions within the market in terms of managing the supply and demand of the currency.
Okay. Right. Very, very last one. We didn't have any lady in your, so for gender balance.
Hey.
Let's have
excuse me, sir?
One question from the ladies.
I have to stand next to her and hold the mic for her. 60 seconds starting now.
Well, it's not a question. It's to support the panel, but also to request. The lady from Capital Markets said that we are coming to her without solutions. Now, from the real estate sector, I don't know how many are here from there. We've gotten a lot of support from BOU. We are working with the financial sector, Mr. Mbabazizi, the lady in the middle. They've called us for a number of meetings. Yes. And Madam Asia, I have not gone to her, but we've gotten a lot of support. But what we have gone with them is we've come with a solution that is going to help almost everyone who's here in the system. My request is I need to get all of them in the same room so that I can convince them that my system can solve all our problems.
Over to the panel.
All right. So before we have about how many minutes?
Each of them gets 60 seconds to respond. And
the
then
panelists.
Yes, because I have the next panel waiting in the wings.
Okay, so we shall have 1 minute for each panelist to share their closing thoughts. You may also respond to some of the questions along the way, but we can use this 1 minute to share with us your parting shots based on what you have, you understand and what you have heard from the audience today. I would ask Sharifa to start us off if you're ready. Any thoughts? The one who freezes accounts.
My thought, Ugandans have a long-standing fear of government. So we already have an antagonistic relationship. It's a hate and love relationship with government. So that's why all of this is coming up. And another thing is when Ugandans come into money, they begin behaving like criminals. Before we even ask anything, you already behave like a criminal. We ask you, come and register. You're hiding. Why? Yet you've made this money rightfully. So I don't blame, you have to empathize with us as well. Because your consumer behavior, we are responding to your consumer behavior, essentially. You're trading huge amounts. Your account is flagged as suspicious. The bank requests you come and explain where this money is coming from. Immediately, you assume we are going to either tax you or take it. You hide. What is our next course of action as a regulator? Freeze. Then you come and explain. We've had these instances. People come, you come to our offices, you explain, you show us the platforms, you show us that you're rightfully trading and your money has been released. But please, we will continue to engage. And like someone said, there's a lot of multi-sectoral engagement going on. We have the working group seated at BOU, which we are part of. And as the FIA doors are really open, we are constantly asking for feedback. My colleague at BOU says there's a survey. We've been begging Ugandans to respond. Literally. We've been begging on all our platforms for you to respond. We had one earlier as well, as part of our risk assessment. And again, we were begging. Now you come to forums and say we are not engaging you. But we are on our platforms constantly. We are sending these survey forms to all the groups. I am personally in so many groups where crypto activists, enthusiasts are, and I am constantly sharing these links. Please fill in. Please, because I know down the road you'll come back and say, Ugandans were not part of this. Yet we came to you and said, please fill in. Please give us your response to these suggestions, to these surveys. So, and again, as the FIA, I would like to ask you to please come and register. You're a VASP. Please come. We have just one person. Before we sanction you, come and register. It is free. It is online. All the requirements are there. Register. There is we will not penalize you. There is no tax. Come and register so that we know who is working in the sector and what you're doing.
Wow, awesome. So, Andrew, you picked up a number of issues. You can respond to some, but also give us your parting shots.
All right,
as
thank
we come
you.
To a close.
CBDC, I think she has addressed that. We're running a public survey. We're running a public stakeholder conversation. And it is unfair for you to say that we're not consulting the Ugandans, and yet we have issued a public document for you to comment on. And at a later stage, we shall actually have workshops. So maybe the leadership of the association and selected stakeholders will participate in the physical conversations. But please check out the Central Bank website on CBDC issues. Joseph, FSDU, thank you. I agree with you entirely. We must split, rather we must have a clear conversation that separates the technology from the products, okay? Let's separate those two. And in terms of the technology, I've already mentioned we have people in this market. We have licensed institutions. Unfortunately, I can't mention them here, but we do have licensed payment service providers who are running on blockchain technology rails, okay? That is standard. I mean, maybe on a one-on-one I can share, but that is okay. And we don't have a problem with the technology. The question is the products. Can we talk about the risks that the products pose? Okay? And I think that's where my brother Luis is ranting from. It is the products. Can you demonstrate that you've dealt with the risks? That is one. Two, can you demonstrate that those products are accommodated within the existing regulatory framework? You talk about open banking. We can't talk about open banking as a product being rolled out without creating the framework for it. How are you going to protect the data? How are you going to deal with the APIs that are sharing data across multiple sectors? So those are very healthy conversations, but as regulators, we're saying, can we deal with the risks? Can we create the framework and then have a healthy conversation? The question about crypto. One of the challenges that we do have with crypto specifically, now, this is not blockchain, and you need to get that clearly. One of the challenges we have about crypto is the monetary sovereignty question, okay? And I don't think that can be addressed because one of the fundamental issues about distributed ledger technology is the absence of centralized counterparties. Now, even the use cases I cited earlier, if you go and read about Project M-Bridge, it is now cross-border related transactions. But from a monetary policy perspective, that will remain a question, and that's why the Bank for International Settlement is running with Project Agora. One of the things they're actually looking into are questions around monetary policy. But in that particular test, remember, it is tokenization. Now, the tokenization they're testing is tokenization of bank deposits, meaning that the token is already secured by a commercial bank deposit in a regulated financial institution. So, in a nutshell, the jury is still out in terms of whether cryptocurrency can be used to implement monetary policy, given that background. Lastly, Alan, the regulators are not against innovation. We are not against innovation. All we are saying is that, can we innovate responsibly? Can we deal with the risks? Can we innovate in a way that does not pose more harm than good? And that's why the central bank set up a technical working group. It has the Capital Markets Authority. It has the Financial Intelligence Authority. Joseph over there, FSDU is represented, and so many other stakeholders. And they've actually written a policy paper on harnessing blockchain. Not harnessing crypto, harnessing blockchain in the financial sector. And some of the useful use cases, the lady here has mentioned real estate. That is one of the areas that has been identified, plus so many others. Securities settlement, loan processing, cross-border payments, and so many others. So let's have the conversations, but let's also think about responsible innovation. That is my parting shot. Thank you.
Wow, thank you very much, Andrew. And lastly, we shall hear from the CEO of the Capital Markets Authority. Your parting shots and any other insights you want to share as we come to a close.
So thank you, Alan. My parting shot is really, at Capital Markets, we want to diversify the products that are available to investors. And therefore, I'm calling upon you, the innovators, to come up with products that can be useful to the public, that can resolve a need, because usually a product needs to address a need. So please, you're the innovators, bring the products, we are willing to study those products and be able to regulate. And I tell you the approach that we are taking now is regulation will come after the product, after we've studied the product. Because we've put in regulations which have never been used. We have a regulation on REITs. No one has ever listed a REIT. We've put regulation for asset-backed securities. Nobody has ever utilized them. So we are now thinking, why should we waste time developing regulations for things that are not used? Rather, let the products come, and then from that point, we'll be able to put the appropriate framework and the regulations that would support it. So do not feel scared that the regulators are not supportive. We are living in a technology era. It has disrupted all our lives, and capital markets is no exception. So please, for me, I'm looking forward to receiving you with the innovative ideas that you have, because for me, the objective I want to see is capital markets growing and contributing fundamentally to the development of this country. Thank you.
Wow, a big round of applause for our regulators. I leave this 1 hour wiser on what's happening. I hope you all have picked one or two things. It's not all doom and gloom as we started, but I believe there are so many pathways to bringing a number of your innovations and products to market. I don't know if we are going to take a group photo for the panel, but I can invite the panel to take a minute in front, and we stand there, take a quick picture, and then I will hand it over to Moses, who is harassing me.
I was elected host and chief whip, so I'm just making sure that we stay on track. Let's read one more time for our panelists. It's been a great panel, especially talking about the regulatory frameworks. Madame Josephine, it's interesting you should mention that. I remember at the handover for the Blockchain Association in May, you spoke about a sandbox for people, digital asset players, within which, to come and bring their innovations. Okay. Thank you very much. One more time for the panelists. Ably steered by Alan Retabe. People ate lunch. Yes. Gloria, your lunch is doing wonders here. My goodness. All right, everybody, a simple exercise for me. Breathe in and out. Breathe in and out. Now breathe in for a count of 4. Hold for a count of 7. And breathe out slowly through your mouth for a count of 8. I'm sorry, the temperature in the room was rising, so I just had to get you guys to calm down. Huh? Okay, we're moving on to our next panel. Before that panel comes, we have a very interesting presentation from a user case study from South Africa. Please help me to welcome Mr. Angus Brown of Minute Money.
Thank you very much. A little interlude, I think, between panels, and I just thank you for your time and attention for a few minutes. We're talking about use cases and the examples, and I think also from our own experience, there's a lot of conversations about sandboxes and that. So, my name is Angus Brown. I'm the founder and CEO of a remittance business based out of South Africa called Minute Money. We started as a proof of concept in 2019, just before the COVID lockdowns, based out of South Africa, and our purpose was sort of very old-fashioned, and that was to help people send money back home. It's like one of the oldest use cases of money. It's one of the oldest use cases of blockchain that people were talking about. And I actually brought along some of our material. Now, what we do is we're actually helping Ugandans in South Africa send money back home here. And we've been doing that for a couple of years now. Still a small business, still in early stages of development. This is only basically, I think, step 1 of what we're doing. But if you actually look at our marketing material, what you'll see here is, and I'll leave a few of these behind so that you can have a look at, it doesn't say crypto, it doesn't say Web3, it doesn't say blockchain. It says what the job is. It says the job is send money back home. And that's what I think is something that has enabled us to get some success and some traction, is because we appeal to the simplicity of what people are trying to do, not talking about the technology that we're using underneath it. And so we've had some success along that time. We actually joined the Intergovernmental Sandbox that was been operating out of South Africa, the IFWG. Back in 2021, we were in that sandbox. And the sandbox was actually basically not really to prove a particular point. It was to help the regulators understand what we're doing and to give them full visibility on our actual business product. We didn't need the law to be changed. We wanted to show them how do we actually use the technology in a very simple way. It worked quite nicely. We're in the sandbox for 6 months, and the regulators, the financial crime regulators, the capital market regulators, everybody looked at this, and after a while they said, oh, it's actually just really simple. There's nothing here. And like, go and look at other stuff, because what you're doing is really straightforward, really simple. And that was actually quite a relief to see that they could look and they could see that we were doing KYC on customers. We're travel rule compliant in moving money over. The volatility was near zero, effectively zero, so there wasn't consumer risk on that. We basically were just using blockchain as the rail to get money back home, here to Uganda, within minutes. So the end-to-end process, put cash in South Africa, comes out here in MTN or Airtel mobile money within 5 minutes, 6 minutes. So that was what we were building. What we were using is the blockchain as the rail underneath that. So the customers didn't need to understand crypto assets or anything complex. It was really just quite straightforward. Get the money there. That was our point. We still have further innovations that we're going to be working on. As I said, it's still early days. But I wanted just to share with you this particular use case. We're expanding globally. We're expanding more corridors, more countries, etc. And there are, I think, a focus for people in this room is think about what are the tangible benefits to the consumer and what's the financial case. Like, how are you charging customers for this? Is it reasonable? Is it fair? Can you disclose what you're doing, and can you make money as a business? You put that all together, and that's how you can use blockchain to actually create innovation and to create positive customer outcomes. So I'm really just pleased with a couple of minutes to just basically share with you what we've been doing here and to encourage you as innovators in the space here to look at, understand your regulations, work with your regulators, the people who are on stage here. I often feel quite sorry for the position that they're in. They have a difficult job in a complex environment with a high amount of risk on them to be able to do it. So I found leaning in, work closely with the regulators, talk to them, explain what you're doing, share, and then be bold enough to actually innovate. Just get in there and build it and start working on it. Keep your regulators close as you're going along and make some success. So thank you for your time. I think, Moses, are you going to hand over to the panel now?
Thank you very much. The next panel we're going to have is all about the creative economy, and it's going to be moderated by Mr. Alexander, so I'll let him take the floor. Alexander.
Thank you so much, Moses. Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. We're going to be relaxing a little bit the environment because we're moving from financial topics to creative topics, creative economy. And thank you. One of my colleagues early on mentioned that the internet itself is a very old technology. So take an educated guess. How old is the modern internet that we use, every single one of us, on a daily basis? Any guesses? 30 years. Very close. Anyone else? George, tell us, what do you think? How old is it? 24. No, I think your friend was a bit closer. It's almost 33 years old. And with any technology that is that old, we can speak about evolution. And the way we describe evolution of the internet is in the buzzwords. The same buzzwords as we had before, CBDC. Who knows what is CBDC, right? I think we should be able to speak about evolution of any technology in very simple terms. So when we speak about the internet, you've got a version 1.0. What are buzzwords? Version 2.0, and guess what? Version 3.0, right? So what that actually means. So on the early days of the internet, which we refer to as a web 1.0, is a very static version of the internet. Is the version where we can only consume the content. We've got a websites which we could read, that's it. And I was introduced by Sir Tim Berners-Lee in 1991. It took more than a decade to move to what we call now, today's internet, Web 2.0. What is Web 2.0? Is with the rise of social media, we're not any longer just consuming the content, we're being encouraged to actually start interacting with the content, but also generate the content itself. And all of a sudden, we've been making comments, we've been sharing our thoughts, we've been creating music, uploading it to some centralized platforms, videos as well. And speaking of centralized platforms, I think back in the days, they done an excellent job. They gave us a voice. All of a sudden, we were able to reach wider audiences. So if we've got a video, we go to YouTube. We upload the video to YouTube, and all of a sudden, everyone around the world can see it, which is marvelous. The trouble is, we've been producing so much data, being given this voice. So much data is just incredible. 90% of all world's data has been generated in the last 24 months. You know what that means? That means the data is the new oil. And guess what? You're not owning it. Someone else is owning it. It's just a handful of centralized platforms, which gives us a really good benefits of reaching to the wider audiences, which now today controls the data. So what we're looking for right now is the additional evolution of the internet from Web 2.0 to Web 3.0, which again, buzzwords, what that really means. That means that we're giving back the ownership of the data to the rightful users, to those who create. So let me welcome, with having said that, our panelists to speak about creators economy. Natasha, Irene, and Rashida. Ladies, we're really blessed today because you all coming from a slightly different angle in those discussions today. So let me very briefly introduce our panelists, and they will speak a few words about themselves as well. So Irene Esta Mutuzo. Irene is first and foremost a poet. I think that's what we agreed to identify yourself in the first place, because she had so many hats that she's wearing, but I think the main one is that you are the creative person. You are the artist yourself. But on top of being artist, you said that you got a superpower. You are understanding technology to the point where you could actually translate this to the mortals like me and help me understand how technology actually works and what benefits it gives me. So that's brilliant. Thank you. And a round of applause for Irene. We also have got Rashida Nalu Moso. Rashida, I think you've got more than 15 years of experience in creative production. Creative collaboration as well, and with this experience, you are really passionate about creative economy. That's what we've discussed yesterday, and that crystallizes in your current role of being regional program manager of creative economy with the British Council Art, with the team based in Kampala, Uganda. Round of applause. Thank you. And last but not least, we've got Natasha, who is the actual artist, full-time artist producing digital artwork. And I think your inspirational quote was really kind of breathtaking. You said, your mission is to inspire young artists, especially in Uganda, to believe that the art is a respectable and valid career path that they can choose if they really want. That's brilliant. Thank you ever so much. Have a round of applause. So with that being said, I think we can put some microphones in our hands. That's going to be easier. So Natasha, creative economy, the way I see it, is about creators. It's about artists and creative professionals. And you had a journey starting as a digital artist who discovered blockchain already. Could you tell us more about it? Like how did you stumble upon blockchain technology and how it actually helps you?
introduced to the blockchain technology through NFTs, non-fungible tokens. And that was March 2021. Someone told me about that. And it was a very interesting concept. I went down a whole rabbit hole of what NFTs can do for me as a digital artist, because I wasn't even in the traditional art space. I wasn't exhibiting my work. And through NFTs, I managed to distribute my work, not just nationally, but also globally.
Fantastic.
I have managed to exhibit in places that I think I would not be able to exhibit if I didn't have that borderless connection, because I've exhibited in the Times Square in New York, I've exhibited in Miami, I've exhibited in Europe, but only because of how borderless the blockchain technology has made the supply of my work and the distribution of my work. And as I got into the space, it was a bit tricky for me as an artist to sell my work, especially because the market is not here in Africa or even in East Africa. The market is in the US, it's in Europe, so we had to work relentless hours being in Twitter spaces at because of the different time zones. And when I noticed this gap in the market, I and my co-founder Laura, we decided to launch one of the bigger projects that were dominating the market. The projects were 5,000 NFTs to 10,000 NFTs. So we put our minds together and launched an NFT project of 5,000 NFTs in July 2021, and we were the first African creators to do that. There were no people doing that in the African NFT space. And then after selling those out, we are now trying to empower creatives by bridging that gap of how do I get my work out there, how do I market my work, how do I get onto the space through onboarding, through educational services, through also hosting events like NFT Africa, the NFT Summit we hosted 2 months ago. It was a 3-country summit in Kenya, Tanzania, Uganda. So basically we are trying to introduce this technology to other creatives and also let them know how it can empower them in the various creative sectors other than digital art.
Fantastic, thank you ever so much. You've shared so many insights. Let's just try to unfold all of this. You did mention 2 things. You did mention ownership. So the blockchain technology helps you to own the work that you could then monetize. So Irene, because your superpowers are to explain people how those things work, could you please help us understand how the ownership actually emerged from the technology being applied to creative world?
Okay, thank you very much. I'll first of all say, yes, first I'm a creative, I'm a poet. That's what I love to do. I could do it all day round. And then my typical 9 to 5, I'm a lecturer at the university. So I'm not your typical coder. My background is actually psychology, but I've always been intrigued by tech. So I've ended up working in various tech fields, from ed tech to blockchain, specifically digital credentialing at my previous job. And one of the things I discovered, both as my passion being a teacher, I realized that sometimes there's a negative aspect of how people treat blockchain because of how it's being communicated, how the concepts around it are being communicated. And when I was introducing blockchain technology, specifically digital credentials, to the market, I often got a lot of questions and people, trying to understand what is a credential, what does verification mean, what does a QR code mean. So it taught me that for people to understand the technology, we as the people that explain it and the people that know about it, we need to explain it in very, very easy ways. And the reality is, now going to my psychology bit, sometimes you have to read the room. If you read the room and you realize that the moment you say blockchain, people run away, you do not have to use blockchain anywhere in your pitch. At the end of the day, people just want to understand the value that technology brings to them. And speaking from the digital credentialing side, because that's the main use case I know of, digital credentials have so much power, not just for the typical person today, but also I as a creative. and specifically I as a poet. And I like to, again, explain this in simple terms. I look at a digital credential like an envelope. You have a letter or you have a written poem, and you put it in an envelope, and that envelope is shared or sent to different people, right? Now digitize that same concept. The power is that this envelope now has the ability to provide so much. You're able to digitize it, you're able to share the contents of your work, and most importantly, you're able to also choose who sees that information. You're able to choose whether you want someone to see it, whether you want someone to trace it, whether you want someone to edit that information or not. And at the end of the day, as creatives, we need to be able to have these avenues that allow us to protect our work. And I'll speak from a personal point of view. There's a time someone sent me a video of someone presenting my work as their work. And I mean, I get to be paid to present my poems. But this person was literally presenting the entire piece, and they were probably paid for it. But I didn't know. I could never have known. However, if perhaps my poetry was digitized in the form of a digital credential, I would have the power to, first of all, control who's accessing my work. I would have the power to monetize it before someone accesses it. Can they identify themselves and then make the payment? I would also have the power to trace where that poem is going. And for us as creatives, I don't like to say that we have fans. I think that it's actually a community. And for me to better express myself, to better understand the needs of the people that I relate to, I need to know who they are, which blockchain and digital credentials provide. By knowing who they are, it allows me to understand how to better communicate to my community. It also allows me to understand who is actually in need of my work. It also allows me to engage with my community, so that if someone wants me to present, or perhaps I want to have a conversation with them based off the credentials that they've provided, I'm able to follow that up. So, and I will not lie, as a poet, I have not really used digital credentials in terms of poetry, because I have not yet found a platform that enables me to do so. And this is something to challenge the people in this room. A lot of blockchain technologies focus a lot on the fintech, the money aspects, but blockchain can be used for so many things. And digital credentials is just one of the things. But in the agriculture sector, in the health sector, you know, in all these other sectors, retail, we need to challenge ourselves as people in this room to tap into these spaces, because there is a market. There is people like me that are looking for a platform that allows me to protect my work as a creative.
Irene, thank you ever so much. Again, loads of insights. So again, let's just try to unfold this. So the way we kind of think about technology, DLT specifically, blockchain, in the creators economy is adding value to digital assets. Because today, if I would take my phone and take a picture, this picture has no monetary value. While this, for example, book, which is physical, it has some attributes. It's a black cover, 160 pages. It has a cost, it has a value, right? So what blockchain enables us to do is to transfer those properties of physical items into the digital items, so that we could start pricing those, right? And with those verifiable credentials that you've just mentioned, we could control who has an access, we could monetize it, we could revoke the access as well, which I think makes the whole new economy kind of opening in front of us. Rashida, with your position at the moment within the British Council, I think you've got a really good macro view on not only Uganda, but the whole region of Africa. So from your point of view, what are the pain points of actually getting this technology into hands of people on the ground?
Yeah, and I think it's really interesting to enter the conversation from the simplicity of what are we trying to do and how are we trying to support artists have a take-home pay and grow an economy as part of a wider economy within the country, which is the opportunity for creative economies in Africa. And Africa's contribution to the global creative economy, we know, is still only 5% globally. So there's a huge opportunity of engaging in this conversation, not only for Uganda, for the continent, and for international collaboration. I'm really interested in how the blockchain technology itself can support how work is authenticated, sold, and bought, and the opportunity to enter dialogues of community, collaboration, art form making in itself. I think artists have always been engaging with technology, and let's not get so complicated by feeling like data sits over there and our creative art making has to sit over here. There is a huge opportunity to really enter a new terrain of what we can do to showcase our work within blockchain. And I think the examples of who I'm sitting with today really evidence exciting, tangible art making that I think is the point. So let's not lose. This is an opportunity for art making that we can experience, and getting back to what is the essentials of building communities, which is how we collaborate across borders, and conversations of also entering to address the challenges which we know really do exist of why is Africa not taking its seat on global stages for collaboration as much as it could. I'm interested in how this technology could really solve some of the issues that we're really facing in terms of that GDP take-home for Uganda to be entering into spaces that we might not otherwise be doing. And this picks up the conversation that I had the pleasure of joining the panel with Natasha last week at the KTA annual symposium on IP and cultural heritage. It's easier for Natasha as a creative to be entering a room through a digital space and have a conversation with the director of MoMA than it might be for the curator of a gallery here to physically, obviously, get on a plane, get the visa, obtain the opportunity to have that dialogue. So we're able to build these networks, and through that we can build the opportunity of collaboration and within itself also really push the terrain of creativity, whether we're talking about fashion, film, music, creative technology intersects all of these, and it's an opportunity for the continent that I'm really excited in through my work with the British Council, where we really firmly believe that creative economy is a economic driver of growth for young people. This is about jobs, livelihood, and it's really an opportunity for us to demystify, I think, where we can engage in it, to create spaces where a poet should definitely be able to accredit your work and engage in new dialogues and collaborations.
Fantastic, thank you ever so much. That's going to be a very short session, so I want to touch on one more thing which is very close to me. There is Innovation Village. Very close to us. And I know you've been hosting a roundtable over there within the creative economy kind of theme, and it feels to be an epicenter of everything. So could you just share a few bits and bobs? What are the outcomes of the roundtable that you've hosted over there?
Oh, sure. Well, so within the British Council, we also work with the UK government. We're a sister organisation as part of the UK's International Cultural Relations organisation. And so we're really interested in this opportunity of science, technology and innovation for international collaboration to drive jobs, growth, opportunities to collaborate and access markets. So we held an event within Innovation Village recently where we were trying to address the gaps between why sometimes does it feel as if the arts is a separate dialogue to technology. And I think within Uganda and within Kampala, what CK Japheth has driven within the creation of Innovation Village and now with Motive is a perfect opportunity for us to kind of draw that circle round in a way of positioning data and technology and creativity in one room rather than separate spaces. You know, we have STEAM opportunities for encouraging the early years education for young people, science, technology, arts, math, engineering. It can be one holistic learning opportunity for young people, and if we start it early, this is the opportunity to drive growth and a roadmap for Uganda's future to be competitive around our innovations within the science and technology and innovation space. So really the round table was taking a deep dive, consulting across universities, tech creators, individuals who are creating new content. What are the opportunities of when they meet what are the opportunities they need for an operating environment to be conducive when it comes to talking about access to market? How can we support that as international organizations? What do we really need? Sometimes this technology is expensive. If I'm going to innovate, it comes at a price. So the conversations of how much does it really cost for tech versus software. I think that's an interesting conversation on some of the entry levels that are perhaps lower hanging fruit for when we're talking about blockchain, that is not actually, all I need is a smartphone and some data, although we know we've got a high cost of data in this whole continent. So these are also issues we need to address around what does it take to innovate, and actually coming back to a conversation around accessibility, a huge digital divide in a country like Uganda. We can't ignore the education piece within this at all.
Fully agree with you. I think the cost efficiency of any technology that you would take upon and start implementing is a vital element of the discussion. And I was trying to, after like our discussions yesterday, trying to picture the use case that would be suitable for the region, because as you said, the business that people operate and try to kind of put forward in this region is less being done on, for example, web browsers, is more on WhatsApp, right? So imagine there is an artist with a group of followers on WhatsApp, and they send a piece of song, a short video, an image, with an option tap to unlock. And the moment the receivers would receive this piece of creation, the moment they click on it, it takes a payment, a micro payment, and the royalties from this creation is being distributed to everyone who contributed to the creation of this content. And I think from the efficiency of technology point of view, what is very important is this on the transaction cost level costs 0.00 Ugandan shilling. This is the cost of technology enabling artists right now to get to the wider audience and use the technology to monetize their creation. Thank you ever so much. As I mentioned, the panel was quite close, so we quite short. So we've got a moment for one question from the audience. If there is one, please go on. Can we reach with a mic, please?
Good afternoon. My name is Iara. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Iara. I am a visual artist. My question is, for an artist who's starting out in art, where should we start if we want to really involve our art in the blockchain and NFTs? Thank you.
Natasha, would you like to take it over?
Yes, I'll take that question. So there's various communities that you can be a part of, because the NFT and blockchain space is all about communities, very community oriented. Sadly for me, when I was beginning, there were not so many communities that you could be a part of, but there's a community that we're building called Mbogi Collective. It is the East African NFT community, and you can just search Mbogi Collective on Twitter, on Instagram, and you can be part of that community. Get in there, engage, tell people about your work. If you need some mentorship, there's also people that can mentor you, depending on what medium your visual art is. There's all those steps that you can take, and we can also help to onboard you on the various platforms, because there's various blockchains that you can mint or put your work on. So just get into that community, and yeah, we will onboard you.
I think maybe Rashida can also speak to if there are any collaborative opportunities with British Council for budding artists such as herself.
We always have open calls, call-outs, come to our creative hustles. We're keenly looking, particularly through our fashion work and visual arts at the moment, with our arts program on the ground in Uganda, including supporting festivals. Technology, we see, intersects across all of our work. So I think the immediate thing I would say for everyone in the room is look out for our program on the East Africa Arts Instagram, which is where we post our opportunities, and we regularly are doing events where we're trying to build networks and communities that we call creative hustles, and so they're a really good place to start. We showcase a lot within the British Council here in Kampala, our foyer, and we've been using that to also intentionally bring communities of practice together. So whether you're working in theatre, whether you're a writer, whether you're a filmmaker, because we also understand that fragmentation isn't going to help us grow. We are a young creative economy. Even creative economy as a term is relatively new for the whole world. And what does that mean? It means that we really need to support each other. We need to collaborate across our sectors. So I'm really excited when there's an opportunity for a fashion designer to collaborate with a creative technologist working with somebody who leads a festival. And so how can we build those opportunities for access to market? So keep a lookout for that. And I'm happy to take that conversation further with anybody who'd like to.
Thank you very much.
Moises, do we have time
There's
for
a
one
question
more
at the front over here from Michael.
Thank you, Moses. My name is Michael. I design software, and I really, really loved what Irene did with her superpower, breaking down the whole blockchain term. This is my closest experience to blockchain. I've read about the tech, not too close, but today it was very eye-opening. And one of the things that is probably only me, but the term blockchain is a bit intimidating. Immediately I hear the word, I'm a bit hesitant, right? But the whole point of don't talk about blockchain, talk about what it can do, was super amazing for me. And the one question I have for you, just to save on your superpower, if you were to explain this blockchain technology, there's like so many other types of technologies, blockchain is the one we're dealing with, how would you break it down very, very simply for like a primary school kid? They just want to know. Could you please?
Thank you very much. When explaining blockchain technology, I usually use to tell you that you have a document that you own, and one, you want to have control over that document, what goes on in that document, who edits it, who sees it. Blockchain technology allows you to, one, have full control in that if you want to share that document with another person, that person has to identify themselves so that you can give them the power to access that information. If that person needs to edit anything, there has to be an agreement, it could be digital, that allows for you to accept that change or to reject that change. Then the other superpower that blockchain has is that wherever this document goes, within the ecosystem that you're sharing in, you'll be able to see who has accessed it, down to when they've accessed it, and for certain systems, you're able to even see how long they have been on the document. The other aspect that we also look at when using blockchain technology is the aspect of verifiability. And this I will use with your transcript or your certificate. Today, if I asked you, bring your certificate so that I can verify it right now, I can't. I would have to go to your university to get that verification. But if that certificate was based off blockchain, a digital credential, there could be a link, there could be a QR code that I can scan, and within seconds, I can be told this certificate indeed belongs to this person. And the beauty about this is that it is a digital document, a contract, a certificate, a poem. So even if you lose that, you could say paper, as long as you have access to the code, as long as you have access to the link, you'll be able to access it. And if you look at it now, we use links almost in everything we do. We use QR codes almost in everything we do. And we just have to visualize the value of the technology in that way. People won't even have to know the yada yada that is going, in the background. I see a QR code, I see a link, I'm able to share it, I'm able to identify myself, I'm able to say, no, I do not want this person to access the document. I hope I've tried.
Irene, thank you ever so much. I will take this opportunity maybe to wrap it up and circle back to the initial introduction of this panel. Moises, if you don't mind.
Okay.
Gosh, you've got the superpowers of actually translating things in the really simple terms. Michael, if I may, I will be a bit counterintuitive. If someone asks me like how we would explain blockchain and so on and so forth, I'm circling back to the internet. You do build an application on the internet, do you? And you benefit from all the kind of good things that internet brought to humanity. But do you really understand TCP/IP as a protocol that underpins the internet? You don't have to. And that's the beauty of blockchain. Today, because it's the early stage of Web 3.0, everyone wants to understand the nitty-gritty details of blockchain, how it works, so on and so forth. And I think the role of any associations that try to put blockchain into mass adoption is to make sure that we're going to provide everyone with the tools where blockchain will become a plumbing, where basically you take the advantages of blockchain technology without necessarily understanding it the same way as you take the advantage of the internet today without necessarily asking what is the TCP/IP. Thank you ever so much.
All right, Alexander, just 2 last questions. I'm going to ask one question over here at the back.
Really, thank you for seeing me. It was very difficult trying to get attention. Good afternoon, everyone. I just have a very quick question. My name is Kenneth Muhanji from KT Advocates. For the creatives in particular, I'm a fan for all the ladies on the stage, specifically the creatives, Irene and Natasha there. So my question is around intellectual property. We know that the blockchain has the potential to be able to assist when it comes to valuation of assets or being able to ensure that there's a record. So we are looking at approaching banks to see whether they can be able to take intellectual property as collateral. Do you think, looking at it from that perspective, in terms of the records on the blockchain being what's the term, immutable, do you think that it has the potential perhaps to be able to change how artists are able to look at their crafts, how they're able to get security for their loans? That's really what I wanted to ask.
All right, thank you, Kenneth. One last question from Isabel. Isabel, I see your hand was up. While Natasha and Irene mull over that question.
Thank you, Dende. I had a question for Natasha regarding her experience with NFTs. You mentioned you began as the traditional artist and then moved on to using NFTs. And when you look at the advantages of blockchain in reducing the intermediaries and the people you have to deal with, for me as a lawyer and a creative, especially in music, we have to deal with so many people by the time you get to receive money. So there's Spotify who's distributing for you, there's a session musician you need to pay, there's a producer. What's your experience before and after in earning more or being able to state clearly what your terms are, what you want for the value of your art? Have you also had the opportunity to look at maybe how other artists are pricing their art? Because that's also a problem we have. Like, what do I use to value my song? How big I am? How much is played on the radio? etc, etc. That would be helpful for some creatives, including myself, I imagine.
All right, so taking out the middleman and using your IP as collateral. Natasha, the floor is yours.
Yes, I'll answer your question first. So in terms of valuation and distribution of your work, my experience before I got into the blockchain space as an artist was that I'd have to take my work to galleries and try to get them to sell my work, and then they'd also have to take a percentage off of that. And I know that's also similar with the music space because the distributors take a percentage off of that. But when you cut out the middleman, you're able to communicate with your community on a direct basis. Let's say people that listen to your music, you can distribute it. And then with the smart contract technology, you're able to also share these proceeds with the people you've worked with. So you can add them to your smart contract, yes, and you split the revenue, you split the royalties at whatever percentage that you agree on with this. So I think this helps on cutting out that person, and then you have control over who listens to your music, where it's distributed, and I think you also reach a larger community as well. And in terms of valuation, most times in the NFT community, the artist makes their own value. So there's a bunch of people that sell at different price points, and you need to value yourself as an artist and see which price point you want to sell at. There's various ways you can monetize, and there's what is trending right now, which is a free mint. You put your work out for free, but on decentralized social media platforms, so that these likes or reposts that people use, that people put on your work, is sort of like payment for you. And that's a way to reach a bigger community and grow your community without them having to spend too much. But then you could also limit the people that also buy your work at a lower price point, but not also too low for it to be a free mint. And then you can also sell your work as a one of one, and that would be the most expensive one. So you just value it in different, you could look at them as different tiers for different collectors or different people that experience your work. And with this, you can kind of create this whole price distribution whereby even if someone cannot support you on a one-of-one basis, maybe they can't buy your work, your one piece for $1,000, they could support you on a free mint basis whereby they could just give you 0.00 something dollars, but when that's like collected, if you get 10,000 likes at $0.001, that's still something, and someone still feels like they have contributed to you as an artist. Hope that helps.
And maybe just to add on to what you said, personally, when I look at myself as a poet, I imagine that 10 years down the road, 30 years down the road, my great-grandchildren will be able to earn from my work, yeah? And blockchain actually has the ability to do this even after I've left the earth, without having the middlemen of lawyers who are probably going to change over the years and then having to pay them differently. Before I leave, can I digitize my work? Can I tokenize it? And even after so many years, if people still want to access my work, there's a way they can pay for it, and those royalties and that money can go into a fund somewhere. So for every creative here, just to paint a picture of what blockchain technology can do for you beyond you being here on Earth. Yeah.
All right, thank you so much, everyone. It's been a most interesting panel.
Oh, there was a question I didn't.
Huh?
I didn't
Yes,
answer one
the
question.
man was talking about
Yes.
using
So
your IP.
yeah. So Kenneth asked about using IP assets to for valuation. I can't see you. Oh yes.
He's right at the back.
Yeah, so with the blockchain and the way NFTs work, the more you sell your work as an artist, there's something that is called a floor price for your work. And it kind of creates value for your work depending on how often you're selling, how much you have sold. So it shows how much you have sold on the side. If you've sold your work at a value of $15,000, it shows that I have sold my work so far, and it values at $15,000, the sales that I've made. And it also shows the floor price, the lowest that I've sold my work. So with this, it also gives you sort of you can tell that the next piece of work that I'm going to sell is not going to go below the floor price, because that is how you handle your price and your value as an artist in the blockchain space. So I think with this being sort of like a ledger, it attests to why you should be able to use these as assets when you're trying to get a loan from a bank, because it shows that I have been selling this work at this amount in these periods of time, and that means that I will be able to sell more work at a higher price point because I've been able to kind of control my value in the market.
And I'd just like to add, I think Kenneth's question is quite key, and really the opportunity for advocating about why we should all be excited for blockchain, because being able to track back to your own IP, the authentication that it's giving you, is going to allow us to reach those international markets and do it in a way that I think is really exciting, the way multiple investors can engage in this conversation of the art that individuals are making. It's entering new terrain for us when we know that otherwise it's almost like our bargaining opportunity across the continent has been at a disadvantage. And I really do see that blockchain can really position the growing creative economies that we have here, whether we're talking about an artist in fashion, film, music, to authenticate and use their IP to thrive.
All right, thank you very much. Let's hear it for the panel. Alexander, Natasha, Rashida, and Irene, thank you so much. We're going to ask you guys to step down for a photo opportunity and have you joined by the President, Reginald, alongside the VP, Edlin. There is a chance for more questions. Maybe we could take it at the bottom. There's a chance for more questions. There will be a session for more questions. Do not worry about that. We're preparing for our next panel to come on. Before that panel comes on, I have a very special surprise for you guys. But first, a photo opportunity. Reggie, come all the way at the end. Yeah, oh, okay. Uh-huh. All right, everybody, we're looking at that camera. The guy in the Joyful t-shirt. Mr. Joyful, we're looking at you. Very good. We're looking at Madame over here for a picture now. Very good. Thomas, picture?
Oh, he's done. Very good. Thank you, everyone. Please help me to thank the panel. I'm going to ask Irene to stay behind because Irene has something very special for us. Please lend her your ears.
Okay, thank you very much. So I was tasked to write a poem that merges African culture and blockchain. So I hope I did it justice. Okay. Where I come from, Jemva, Iwachu, it's the land of lands, it's the land of beauty, it's the land of freedom, peace, and friendship. I come from the pearl of Africa's crown, gifted by nature, the land of green, a beautiful landscape decked with oil and fertile soils. Into my land flows the largest lake in Africa, the Nalubale Lake Victoria. With its beauty and deep blue waters, it will leave you breathless. My land, oh my land, my land, my land, oh my land. Both the greatest heroes define strength and tenacity. And even in the face of poverty, oppression, and disease, we rise. Oh yes, we rise to victory. My land, oh my land, my land, my land, oh my land. We stand at the helm of a new frontier. This digital age is ours to steer, and in this age, fiercely we will rise, we will transform, we will create, building blocks of trust and unbreakable chains that will bind us forever. My land, oh my land, my land, my land, oh my land. Our time has finally come. Oh, we will champion this new digital age, leaving no one behind. With our privacy safeguarded and our trust redefined. With each block we build, we'll leave no one behind. With every ledger, our strength draws near. Oh yes, our strength draws near. From farm to market to land to trade to art and so much more. With blockchain beneath us, we'll thrive to new heights. And we are ready. Oh yes, we are ready, much more than ever before, to thrive in this new digital era, building block by block and recreating our stories. Boundless in might, will claim our right. And who am I? I am the Muganda, the Muchiga, the Swahili, the Sukuma, the Oromo, the Amhara, the Jap, the Jola, the Jong. I come from the east, the west, the north, and south of Africa. I come from the Pearl of Africa. I come from the Horn of Africa. I come from the Swahili nation. I come from Africa. Call it Wakanda. Thank you very much.
One more time for Irene Esther Mutuso. That's how you close the panel. Moving onwards now, we have a very important panel coming up next. This panel is interrogating the role of academia and development finance in the adoption of the blockchain technology. It's going to be moderated by somebody who is well known to all of us, but if you don't know her, you should. Look out for her on LinkedIn. She's dropping nuggets of wisdom every so often. Put your hands together for Damali Sali. And she'll introduce the panel as they come up.
Thank you so much. There should be a step there for the ladies. Okay, thanks. Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon. My name is Damali Sali. I'm the Chief Programs and Projects Officer at the Private Sector Foundation, Uganda. How many of you know Private Sector Foundation? Oh, hi. I can't see. Okay, a couple of you. Before I get into the panel, I have to do a little pitch for PSFU. So Private Sector Foundation is the apex body of the private sector in Uganda. We're a business membership organization. So members, associations are members of PSFU. Say, for example, Uganda Manufacturers Association, that's one of the members of PSFU. Kasita, I hope the Blockchain Association is a member of PSFU. And Uganda Bankers Association. So we have about 330 associations that are members of PSFU. And therefore, we represent the entire economy of Uganda. And our major goal is policy and advocacy, and that's what we do. In addition to that, we do development. But today I'm here to moderate a panel, and the main point of discussion is the role of academia and development finance in enhancing or catalyzing blockchain technology. And I do have an expert panel that's with me here, and I'm going to call them out. Bana Mugema Turiagenda, who is the lead of experimentation at UNDP. Please put your hands together for Bana. Then I do have Dr. Dorothy Okello, who is the dean at Makerere University. Dr. Dorothy, yes, you may. And last but not least, we do have Patrick Prince, who is a venture capitalist based in Switzerland. You're very welcome. So this topic is very important, and it's to ensure, and I'm glad that it is preceded by two panels, that one was talking about regulation, the other one that was discussing the creative economy, because it exemplifies how we can use blockchain to support development, to support investment, and then and in academic research. So our panel here is going to discuss, or at least give us more detailed nuggets into how academia, investment finance, and development finance can catalyze blockchain. I'm probably going to start off with Bana here. We're going to start with development, because I'm in the development space quite significantly as well. So Bana, you could explain to us how you see blockchain technology addressing specific development challenges in emerging economies such as Uganda.
Thank you, Damali. I'm privileged to be with these very expert people. I'm finding it hard to sit here because this is my teacher. Oh. So imagine calling me an expert in front of my...
In front of your teacher?
Exactly. So that's true. So my name is Bena Mujeba. I'm head of experimentation with UNDP Uganda. An electrical engineer by training. However, I'm very passionate about using technology for social good. And so I find myself working in the innovation space quite a bit. So I transitioned from the telecoms to that. You ask a very important question, and I've been listening to the panels before. The first thing when I saw your question, I was going to say policy frameworks. Then I said no. Listening to the previous panels, and recently I had an excursion in the field. I think the biggest role of development agencies in this space of frontier tech is making sure that no one is left behind. So helping everybody understand, what does blockchain mean? Even just outside here, to the vendors walking on the street, if we did a short interview and just told people, have you ever heard about blockchain? What does it mean? So typically development agencies accompany national governments on their development agendas with the underpinning purpose of leaving no one behind. That means at the end of everything we are trying to do, the person in Karamoja, the farmer in Kisoro, the person in Arua should understand what blockchain means. However, it has a number of applications that are quite interesting in the development space. And I'll share an example, which I hope there's no one from Bank of Uganda to hear the story. My first interfacing with blockchain technology for financial inclusion was an innovator I met in Harare, and they were doing community financing mechanism, where they were saying, in the event of lack of liquidity, what can we do to support people to actually achieve the things that they would like to achieve within their community? It sounded to me like a more advanced method of barter trade using technology. So it made everything look very simple because people were able to trade, they were able to get the social services they needed through that community currency that was based on blockchain. I thought that was a good example, but of course the regulators will be killing us. Then again, the policy frameworks that allow for such technologies to proliferate in our economies. The development agencies really have a big role to help in helping people understand what policies are required, but also what does it mean to regulate these spaces. Is regulation going to limit innovation, or is it going to allow for that? Then providing finance for de-risking investment. Most of the people who support the innovation ecosystems want to support them at the tail end and say, oh, can somebody give me these innovators who have this idea, I have these millions of money to give them, but they want, are they registered? Do they have this? What is their turnover? Sometimes they are just at an idea stage. So development agencies have this, this role to play. They also have a role to play in addressing knowledge gaps. Knowledge gaps, how can we do more research and development around these topics to the point that they're an everyday thing, just like we see mobile money and how people can use them and they become not a thing of the other side. I know blockchain technologies had their first entry with cryptocurrencies, and so it became a huge no-go for everybody, but they have a lot of applications with financial inclusion. She talked about the creative economy, and sometimes we're having discussions around, yes, you want to support the creative economy, and you ask yourself, why do musicians at the end of the day stay broke when Michael Jackson has been dead for the last 20 years and is still earning money? And there are things like, royalties, how do we track the royalties, how do we do all these things? So putting in place all these things, then also the private and public partnerships that need to be put in place to allow for this. I think there's a role for development agencies in this space. Thank you.
Thanks, but I think you touched on several major points. And the first point that I think I'm going to pick up, which is usually an interest to me, how do you make blockchain technology, blockchain knowledge, blockchain information mainstream? Like it's not, it's kind of like mobile money. Everybody gets it. You don't need a PhD to understand what blockchain is. And now moving my next question to Dr. Dorothy, who is in research in academia, who has a PhD, she's a doctor. So my question is what are the most significant research gaps in blockchain technology, and how is academia addressing them?
Thank you so much for the question, and good afternoon, everyone, on a Friday afternoon. First of all, I think my job is actually done. If you have people like Benna here, so I should...
Your student.
Technically speaking, I'm actually on leave for this week, so I really shouldn't have had to come in. And can I see Awil? I don't know if I can see him somewhere. Please tell Awil that next time he calls Benna, and Benna does everything. Yeah, so, but to the question that you raised, I think that there is a lot, obviously, that we can do as academia, but as Benna will know, one of the challenges I have, and even coming out here, did what I shouldn't be doing, but we were stuck in jam, so I called up my students, and they're like, oh, we want to do this and this, and I'm like, okay, but who cares about what you want to do? All right? Yeah, so that is the key thing. Why are we doing what we're doing? Yeah, because, you know, you have the ability to train people to learn how to do the coding and everything like that. But why are they doing them? So I think for me, the biggest thing that we need, and one of the reasons why I'm like, I told Awel, after, of course, a lot of him convincing me that this was the space to spend part of my leave, was, okay, so I will get to be with the people that have problems for which blockchain could be a solution. You see, because I think the biggest gap that we have right now is partnering with different players, industry, the creatives and the like, for whom we can then explore within our context, within what the internet is for us, within what our electricity situation is for us, within the kind of market we have. What is the best way that we should implement blockchain solutions? So that is what, for me, is the biggest thing. And I would hope, actually, I know you were saying you hope Bank of Uganda is not in here, but I think this is exactly where they need to be. We need to have Bank of Uganda, we need to have UCC, we need to have the ministry in these spaces as well. First of all, to see that there's a room full of people. I hazard largely young people, but that is what technically it says, that it will be young people, so that's not a problem. So that we have these conversations together, because the technology itself is not old, okay? The opportunities of what we can do with it are immense, yeah? And one of the challenges you have around policy making and regulatory processes, especially when, and even academia, it's the same. When you have processes like technology that is moving and evolving really quickly, it's where do we start? As she will know, one of the things we'll always tell our students is, okay, you want to do this. Can we find literature on who else has done something similar? What methods did they use? When you get results, how are you going to compare them? How are we going to validate them? Yeah, but if you're in a new space, all of that is new. Okay, so I think bringing all these players like you have in this particular case is very important. Finding partners that want to explore these journeys with us is also very important. Thank you.
Thank you, my doctor. And I did like that question you did ask. Who are you doing the research for? What is the problem that it's trying to solve? How are you using it, or how are we going to use that research for our context? And I think that's critical, because sometimes academia comes up with research stuff, like someone is doing a PhD thesis and you don't even understand the title of their thesis. It's like, like, what is that? So I like that you're asking like down-to-earth questions while you're doing about research. My next question is to Patrick, because the world revolves around money, and he's a venture capitalist. So my next question is to you, because everything we are discussing, literally, without funds, without money, nothing can happen. So my next question to you is that what investment opportunities do you see in blockchain technology, particularly in emerging economies such as Uganda?
Thank you. So we have invested, when the hype really started about blockchain and became mainstream, 2017 onwards, hundreds of millions. And the portfolio performance is terrible. Absolutely terrible, right? Because where the returns were really made, unfortunately, was on the very speculative side of cryptocurrencies. Cryptocurrencies is exchanging native tokens against each other without really caring what the performance is, the utility of such a token, of the technology. I always compare it to land title trading. You can buy, and it's, it might be legitimate business. You buy a land, you flip it against another land, and so on. But if you look at it in terms of the economic output, it's really a low single digit probably of the GDP. So what about now you consider building on top of the land, right? You build the school, the cinema, the shopping mall, you do agriculture. You are checking what is the utility, what is the real potential of this land. You create an economy on top of it. That's what we were focused on from the beginning. As I said, unfortunately, until now, it hasn't really been an economically successful strategy. However, we are very committed that this will become the case. That people, and this is very encouraging here today, because people start to look way beyond and are saying, what is that? What else is there, right? Where can it serve me in my individual business? Where can it solve a problem in our society and economy? So we, until today, stay firm and say there needs to be utility. If someone comes to me and says, I have a blockchain business, what is that? It's like saying I have an internet business. Like, you want to have a unique selling proposition. You want to have a service or utility to a customer that is willing to pay for that service. And you have hopefully a growing market. But it's almost by default today for me that is connected to the internet, or that you're using some kind of cloud service. Or these days, the same for probably AI. What is an AI business, right? Or aren't you really in some sort of business leveraging AI? And I think we're going to get there with blockchain as well. This initial hype that we had brought attention, but I think it brought the wrong attention. Until today, in the public media, you see primarily token prices being discussed. So might it take some more time? Absolutely. But we're going to be around. And associations like the BSV Association, the colleagues here, they have joined over the last couple of years, many of them. It's professional people from the industry. They are sharing this vision, and they're coming on board and working with the public sector. They're working with large enterprises, and they're redefining, hopefully, how we look at this tech medium term.
Maybe just a follow-on question. Do you have any investments on the African continent or in East Africa specifically, Uganda particularly?
We do have one, and that's actually Minute Money, Angus. Angus is here, he presented just earlier, a South African business, remittances. The reason people hesitate still to invest in Africa is because they have either outdated views, they have never been, they're making assumptions. Also, the media reporting is typically on the negative side. And I tell you, every year I'm coming here, once or twice, I have a strong conviction, a macro conviction on this market. And ever since I met here Reginald, my conviction kind of, grows exponentially. And he introduces me to more very qualified people. So he's building the trust. And I bring this message back home. I say, you guys don't understand. You've never been. And everyone I bring, they're always concerned. What's happening there? I'm reading about, whatever, from COVID to Ebola to, monkeypox. Every year I'm getting like, there's always something. And every year people come back and are insanely excited. So that means there's information symmetry. And in my world, that's typically a very positive thing. Because if you take a contrarian strategy, right, and you commit to it, you stick with it, you will eventually get rewards. And I'm convinced. Now, sorry, we're talking very investment specific, but look at how the world has turned. We have macro risks today in the global north that didn't exist before. We have inflation, we have political instability, we have wars. We have, FX risks. It's all risks that generations of entrepreneurs in the global north didn't experience. Ever since I was born, I'm 35 years old, the market went up. Right? Okay, there was financial crisis, so you get it, but overall it was upwards. Things got cheaper, faster delivered. All of a sudden that changed. Supply chain disruptions, inflation, 10%, Austria, 10%. That was like World War II last time. So you have a generation that needs to learn how to deal with these challenges. On the flip side, in this part of the world, challenges have always existed. And those who are still here, they know how to deal with it. So I've observed some of the most resilient businesses on this continent. I'm primarily doing business in Uganda, and I like to think that in East Africa there's a lot of opportunities. I wouldn't say I'm an Africa bull, I'm an East Africa bull. And even with this East Africa, right, it's fragmented. But I think it's something similar happening in Africa than we have in Europe. There is a strategy of dividing us. If Africa gets together and fosters pan-Africa trading, right, there's nothing that can stop you. Because people don't realize that we are dependent. We need young people, right? We have declining populations. We need commodities, resources. We need you to reach our own set sustainability goals. I think your presidents and your parliament, they have understood slowly. I was at the EU-Uganda Business Forum earlier this year in March. I saw a very bold, a very strong message from the president, which I found encouraging. Because if you implement this DNA of confidence into the young people, they are willing to aim higher. Last comment I just want to make, I used to do a lot of business in India. Over the last 10, 15 years, what happened in India is hopefully comparable. massive population growth. All of a sudden, you start to have a consumer market. People got into higher productivity through technology. And the ambitions changed from, okay, I'm just a back office engineer and supporting an international business, to I'm going to be a CEO, a founder. It changed completely. If you today go into Bangalore and present the tech business, you're like, get out of here. We have the best engineers in the world. We built Silicon Valley. They know, right? Microsoft CEO, Indian, right? Google CEO, Indian. I think we are at the early stages of a similar path for Uganda. And I keep repeating what I said earlier. In East Africa context, Uganda is not seen yet because of Rwanda's good marketing and Kenya's tech success story, at least in the past, right? But the prerequisites are all the same.
Oh, Patrick, thank you for that message of hope. It's very, very inspiring, being, we, our African selves. And if you think about it, and I like that you did mention about trade, Pan-African trade especially, we only trade 16% with ourselves. In Europe, it's around 65, almost 70%. So, and I think, of course, the biggest issues are infrastructure. The continent is massive, it's huge. We have language barriers. There's a lot of stuff, but can literally level all of that. And blockchain is one of those technologies that definitely can. But I really thank you for that message of hope, from the outside. Because sometimes when you're inside, you don't see, sometimes you get stuck and you're like, do we really have a lot of hope here? So I'm glad that from the outside, you see quite a lot of opportunity. Thank you. So Bana, to you. What are the key capacity building needs for effective blockchain adoption across the development community?
In terms of capacity, I want to say there are knowledge gaps, right? And these are things that we need to continue to build. He rightly said that with time, this needs to happen. It will happen organically because we have to deconstruct the negative narrative that came as a result of how blockchain technology was associated with cryptocurrencies and all that. There is also capacity to be built in terms of basic digital skilling and financial literacy. Not necessarily just here in the capital city where we are very well versed with certain things, but in countries like ours, there's still people living on the fringe of society where you find that, I was recently actually in a school and we had given them computers. We're trying to find out how they're using them with a new curriculum in secondary schools. And then my final question was, do you have the internet? And they asked me, well, we've heard about that thing they call Wi-Fi. And it was a sobering moment because this is 2024 and somebody doesn't know what the internet is. So we still have a journey in building capacity of people to have basic digital and financial literacy before we move to frontier and intermediate tech. There is also, in terms of capacity, there is also capacity of people to afford and have these devices that need to use this technology. Because we introduce technologies and there's an obvious assumption that somebody will afford a smartphone to have blockchain as an entry-level musician or as an entry-level person into the business. So how do we build their financial capacity, or how do we have models that allow for this to happen? And of course, knowledge all around still remains very scanty, not just for the basic level Ugandan, but also even for the policymakers. It still remains something that is still out there, even though Reginald and Tim have been here for a while. It's a journey that we have to work on. So building the capacity. Dr. Dorothy talked about, yes, whenever we are talking about research, the first thing they tell you to do is do reference to what has been done before. But these are things that are new. Who are we going to reference? So there is an opportunity there to build actual knowledge, research, to learn. Also spaces for people to create. When you think about blockchain technology, I don't know whether there is a space yet, I could be wrong, but I don't know whether there's a space where people actually go to learn about it, its applications, and what it means for them and their everyday problems. Because an innovation or a creation like this one, as rightly has been alluded to by colleagues here and people before, how does it solve my everyday needs? You're telling me to blockchain technology, I'm hungry. They don't match. So there is a lot of capacity that has to be built. There's a lot of advocacy. There's a lot of awareness. But in the most even simple manners. And then there's, I think, still a big gap on showing proof of concept of what it can do. So the moment, because sometimes they say, do not tell me what to do, but show me what can be done. So if there is an opportunity to show, let's say if we are integrating blockchain in public procurement to allow for easy accountability, it is going to be a thing that everybody's, okay, what is this animal called blockchain? It's a simple thing. I like referring to mobile money because I worked in the telecoms for a long time. It was so inclusive and so quick to proliferate the entire country because everybody could dial, even your grandmother could dial *165# *185#. It was that simple. So if we can make it that simple to understand, that simple to help me understand how does blockchain solve my hunger problem, or how does blockchain solve the problems I have with my business, that practicability of it, then I think we'll have gone a long way in this agenda. Yeah.
Right. Thank you, Bana. We're unfortunately almost running out of time. But to Dr. Dorothy, you are the dean at SEDAT, Makerere University, one of the oldest, best universities in the country, East Africa. What do you see as, say, for your department? What future are you trying to work on, especially for your students, apart from the experts like Bana who, got out? The future, what are you trying to do, or what would your department do to further enhance blockchain usage and research?
All right. Thank you for that. I think right now academia is a really cool space to be because the statistics show that I think maybe 50% of our population is in teenagehood. And so if they're teenagers, it means they're in schools at one point or another. So that means that the engagement with the education system, and I really put a call out to the team here, is critical. So that from the early stages, I'm talking about early childhood, nursery school, primary school, in secondary school. We are ensuring that, their computer studies, they are doing the basics of this is the mouse, this is this, and this is this, but they are also getting to, first of all, hear the words, hear Python, hear this, hear that, and the other, and then start coding, because there are all these code camps and pink code and all this, having more of those initiatives right from the early levels. I can tell you from the School of Engineering, I am quite excited about the current crop of students that are doing their S4 exams, because they're doing the new curriculum, which is competence-based, which means that I'm going to get, hopefully in 2 years' time, people who have been trained in terms of solving problems as the way they pass the exams. Not to say there's anything wrong with the Benas of this world. Clearly, they are very successful, as you can see. So I think for me that is one thing that if we can do more, we have outreaches ourselves, but I'm putting out a call out here for everyone to outreach within their community. What I tell my students is, if we all adopted our villages, we could go very far. That is one thing. The other is, and I don't know how the blockchain, if you do, like if they have road shows out into the different communities. We did a project in northern Uganda around good quality internet access, broadband. And we targeted schools. And I can tell you that one of the schools that we, of course, they did have the computers delivered by government, but we brought in the good internet access. They were able to participate in national level seminars for mathematics and what. And actually one of the primary schools, that we provided a good quality Wi-Fi link to. They gave testimony last year that last year was the first time they had anyone in first grade, just because of internet access, enabling them to participate in seminars, enabling them to have access to even more material than they otherwise would have. And I can tell you, we've only connected 5 schools. So I'm not talking about a big project, but I'm just talking about something small. So imagine if we start from there, from all corners of the world, what would we be able to do? And one of the secondary schools that we actually worked with, they were able to come up with a project, and what they were looking at, I was interested when we were talking about the middlemen in the other panel, and what they were looking at, most of the, and again, I'm not saying it that it's a bad thing, most of the Kampala-based schools, what were their projects around? How we get to know, get the homework easily distributed, engage with our teachers and everything. Because internet is fairly accessible to them. What the rural school came up with is, how do they enable their family know what the prices are in the market? So, so for them, that was the middleman, you see? So the idea would be, and I really go back to what I shared earlier, how do we use this technology to solve the local challenges that we have? How do we motivate? Because the students have to do final year projects, for example. Yeah, so what if we had projects that came through the Blockchain Association of having creatives or other partners that want to do something? I like what you said in terms of, okay, there's the land, but what is on top of the land that gives it more value, so that my students who have to do a final year project anyway, all right, can do something that actually adds value to this ecosystem, and hopefully by the end of that, they're in a position where either, and I have to give kudos also to Ben and their team at the Unipod, because we have a state-of-the-art innovation complex that they set up for us. So from my class project, they go to her Unipod, and then they go to an investor. And interestingly, we met with some investors last week because we're trying to bridge the gap with industry. And the first thing they told us is that, when we come to meet you, of course, the first thing you're so excited is to tell us about all these projects you are doing. But what we want to hear is about return on investment, you see? So one of the things we learned from that exercise is that we need to maybe start even having courses on investor readiness. How do we make a pitch? How do we speak in those spaces so that, yes, I have the skills, how do I make myself available to support our country and beyond, because it's now borderless, and we facilitate trade. Like you said, it's very minimal trade across Africa, and yet the potential is huge. So how do we take advantage of our youthful population, of access to technology, and we can figure out how that technology can work for us, so that really wherever you are, including the input of my students, we can cause great change for the country. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Ladies, we've run out of time, but Patrick, I'm just going to ask you just your last thought in 1 minute, and then we'll be done.
Yeah, on the note regarding investors, I think there's one mistake that global north investors make when they come into this market. They always think in their home currencies, which make it sometimes tough to get the returns, because you have to account for at least the past inflation they experienced, or the depreciation, sorry. I think differently these days. I think about in Uganda and Ugandan shillings, because my ambition is, as I make returns, I reinvest. Because I'm building for the future, and the future is here. I'm not going to see the returns I liked from the past in Switzerland these days. This is number one. Number two is, I think DFI, public sector money, plays an important role. And in my interpretation, public sector money is there for public good. It's tax money. It's my money, right? So I actually go regularly to politicians, EU level primarily, sometimes Switzerland. I knock the door and say, what are you doing with my money? Where do you effectively deploy it? Because sometimes I don't see it going into innovation. And innovation in Europe, I can also tell you, is a big problem. You might have heard the Draghi report at the EU Commission is alarming, right? We are as much a playing ball of the US and China as sometimes Africa is. So I feel you somehow. right? And we also have to reinvent ourselves. I strongly feel about combining forces as well. That's why I'm here. I sit in a jurisdiction of capital, but little opportunities. And here I see lots of opportunities and less capital. So why don't we come together and collaborate? And that's what we have been trying to do with Reginald for some years. And I think we have other people now here. Brian, I see, right? From Tobayo, big fan of him, digital entrepreneur. And there's lots of good people I meet in this market, high quality people. So I would like to play the role of someone who de-risks the investment story for investors like you meet. Sometimes they get more comfortable if they get a first chance to meet someone like me. They can hear it from my mouth, and then they talk to you. Right, so happy to play a role if that is ever helpful.
All right. Thank you. Thank you so much, Patrick. Back to you. Are you going to allow any questions? Am I out of time?
One or two questions from the house. I have a question over here. If you could tell us directly who you're speaking to and what your question is.
Good afternoon. My name is Sarah Gemo, and I'm a talent from Groundbreaker. I'm currently in bootcamp with Fracture Academy. My question is to Bana from UNDP. As a girl, we usually face challenges, especially in the tech world, and now with blockchain, it's really very instrumental for the growth of the economy, maybe with cases like removing inflation and all the related issues. What is UNDP doing to see that girls are included in this financial literacy, and how is the government cooperating with private investors like Groundbreaker Talents and others that are helping these girls to actually get these skills for free? And how would we as UNDP help to move this financial literacy all over the country, just not around Kampala and all that?
Aha, affirmative action as well as scaling it up country. 1, 2, 3, enter.
Yes, thank you very much, and I feel you as a lady in a male-dominated field. So whatever you faced, I have faced probably 3 times more. UNDP, underpinning all our work is gender. If anything, if you do work that has no gender, we have gender markers for all the work that we do. In fact, I'll share, I don't know if I have time, I'll share a small story. We set up this state-of-the-art innovation space in Makerere University to allow for creation that she spoke about in the Unipod. And then one of the things that we were doing is how do we link academia to industry? And we onboarded Cura Motors Corporation. It's a peculiar industry, electric vehicles, very new, very novel. The government has invested, like you said, our tax money is there. They've built a beautiful factory on 100 acres, but they don't have human capital. So he said, well, the Unipod and the university can help you do this connection. And we started a skilling program. Initially, they wanted 25 students. Now, when we did the math and did the requirements, only 8 girls qualified. 8 girls out of the 25 who were required. And somebody could easily have passed it as, okay, there are females present. But it's really not just about the females being present. It's about, do they have equal opportunities? Do they have agency to make decisions? So what we do is to ensure that all the programming we do, whether it's in financial inclusion, whether it's even in environment projects like wetland restoration, what does it mean for the woman who's been digging that food? So this is being done, and your question really was around finances. In all our projects, we try to empower both genders. In this case, it doesn't mean men and women. It's all both genders, and for Uganda, I'll go on record saying it means man and woman. Yes, just for the context of Uganda, it means people who identify as male and people who identify as female. So in all our work, we try as much as possible to ensure that there's representation, but not just representation. There is agency given. What does it mean for you? Does it mean that you were just present at the workshop, or you were actually actively participating in crafting what this program or project means to your own personal outcomes. So irrespective of whatever it is, we are doing this.
Well, thank you very much. Let's hear it one more time for our panel. Damn, did this ship excellently. I'm going to ask for a photo opportunity. Where's Reggie? Where's Edlin? Reginald and Edlin. If we could have a photo opportunity right here at the bottom. Hey, but please, Damali, there are stairs. Reggie comes bearing gifts for whom we may never know. Excuse me, please. We have a photo opportunity here. You want to be in the photo? You and you can stand there. You can come and stand there. Don't worry. Don't be shy. Don't be shy. Please, over for my friend. He's not a photo bomber. He's supposed to be here. All right, everybody. We're looking at that guy in the Joyful Noise T-shirt. Smile. Everybody say blockchain. And over there. There we go. Thank you very much. Let's hear it for our panel one more time. We're going to be switching gears because we have a very interesting discussion up next. It's not a panel discussion. Think of it more as a fireside chat, talking about the need for collaboration between government and the private sector. The two people who will be having this discussion are David Gonahasa. That usually elicits applause. David Gonahasa, who is for 4.0 at the Ministry of Science, Technology and Innovation, as well as somebody with probably the most powerful name in the room, Ben-Hur Nyeko. Ben-Hur. I thought he'd come in with a chariot. Ben-Hur Nyeko, who is an aerospace engineer, is also into green energy. All right, gentlemen, the floor is yours. Everybody, please lend them your ears.
I feel like I'm so close to you, Peter. Great. I mean, it's been a long day. Normally, 4:30 conversations no one actually sits to listen to. When I saw the time slot, I thought, wow, Peter, no one's going to listen to you today. My name is David Gonahasa.
David, before. There's a very important announcement here. If anybody has seen a set of keys, car keys on an orange keychain, the key holder is orange, please help us. The man is stuck and he has to go and pick the children's. Thank you very much.
So I was right there in the middle of it. I was trying to get my flow, and you just came in and stopped it. So yeah, as I was. Yeah, so my name is David Gonahasa. I am the team lead Industry 4.0 at the Ministry of Science, Technology and Innovation. It's a mouthful of a title, but I'm also an entrepreneur. I run a company called Tripesa, and I'm super happy to be here with Peter. So Peter will do his own intro, but before he does, why do you wear that tie all the time?
The land that feeds us by sun and fertile soil grown is such a blessing.
So, who are you? Why are you important? Why should we care?
I'm not important. I don't cut my hair, so my hairdresser is really angry with me. I should get more haircuts. Yeah. No, I love sharing what we've been able to experience on our journey at Mandulis Energy. I'm an aerospace engineer that's now working in the clean energy space and trying my best to figure out how to try out new technologies, new approaches to everything from energy to financing to climate to deep technology in rural ecosystems within Africa and elsewhere. And it's been an interesting journey doing this in Uganda, and you know, bringing different perspectives together has enabled us to try out interesting things like, you know, zero priced electricity, zero price cooking fuel, and so on and so forth. So it's always interesting to share some of these ideas and see how others could benefit from not having to make the same mistakes we made already. Thank you.
There was a bit of a structure on how this conversation would go, and I thought, okay, I need to ask, or have this drive it this way. But then when someone gets on stage and says they're creating zero-cost electricity, that is super interesting and super exciting. But something I know about Peter that a few of you may not is that, and he'll tell you about the facility. But what's interesting is that Peter wants to do, and he's working on crypto mining farm in Nwoya that's purely doing it with renewable energy. So I want to hear a little bit about what you're doing in Nwoya with your energy creation, but also how much energy will you need to power your mining farm, and how far along with that?
Awesome, thank you very much. So thankfully, the ecosystem in Uganda allows you to generate up to 10 megawatts for your own use. If you generate that 10 megawatts, you can sell up to 2 megawatts to others and use the 8 on your own. So it's a great place to be trying out things like this. We are currently generating a small amount of electricity in one village in Nwoya. That's about 100 kilowatts. And we generate the electricity using a blend of solar, PV, alongside agricultural waste, converted into hydrogen and methane through both gasification and anaerobic digestion. And so we're in the process of scaling this up to an initial 2 megawatts, of which 1 megawatt will go into powering crypto mining, and close to 3/4 of a megawatt will go into powering an AI compute data center, because both connect the dots, which enable us to finance the work that we do, because all our financing comes from the forward sales of different kinds of sustainable credits, be it renewable energy credits from our solar, be it removal credits from the biochar and green concrete that we do produce. But what is interesting in all this is, data centers and mining rigs run around the clock, which means in a village where people may only need electricity 6 to 12 hours a day, you don't need to have the villagers pay for the electricity all around the clock. But by scaling up and bringing down the levelized cost to as close to zero as possible, you can get to a place where you've given your mining rig a discount on electricity by going below the grid, but cross-subsidized and given the community practically zero price electricity in exchange for their agricultural waste, which feeds the power generation for the mining rig. So it's a nice little cycle there. Yep.
Let's talk about a topic you are very passionate about, climate change, and in particular, carbon credits. I don't know if the room knows this, but I think last year Uganda retired about 30 million carbon credits. So at your average, $12 on the lower end price, $30, $40, $50 on the higher end price, that's, let's go with 10 million times 50, 30. So that's $300 million that someone actually made, right? And there's a very big argument around the trickle down of a lot of these credits to the communities that are actually doing the work. So in my village, you have people planting trees, and someone owns the rights over that asset and is actually actively selling credits somewhere in the world. And we all know about the nature of the blockchain, right? Immutability, transparency, and all these things. How do you think the blockchain could support social safeguards for climate change? And also, what other applications do you think would make sense in that case?
Awesome. So we've realized that in order to deliver high quality carbon credits, which have a high value as well, you've got to make sure that you're tracking each credit, each kilogram of carbon dioxide, not just a ton, exactly where it was generated or replaced or stored, when and how. And when you've got a stove, for example, across 1 million homes, 1 million stoves, and each of those stoves is supposed to capture about a ton of carbon dioxide each year through the ash coming out being used for something else, and replace firewood, for example. In order to know which stove was operating and wasn't operating, you've got to manage all of that, all those different data points. And then to know who you're going to pay. For example, if you're going to put biochar in someone's field, whose field was it? How can you track and figure out the right field, the right phone number, and so on? And when all of that transparency is in place, and when it cannot be fudged in any way, your buyer of that credit considers it high quality. And your price of that credit could go up from $12 to $120, which suddenly changes things. It means, the family generating the credit can earn from that credit, and the developer can earn as well, and the government can earn as well. So it becomes a very interesting, play.
So, and I think for the people in the room, it really is a chat around utility, right? Because whenever you speak blockchain, there's a conversation around utility. So it's always, is it only the crypto trading? Is it, where else is the utility? And I want to come back to the climate conversation, in particular around the new EU law around agriculture. I just want you to give me a couple of other cases. So we've spoken through the monitoring part of blockchain utility. What about around some of the other cases that you've seen? Because I believe in this room we have a number of developers and investors and people, and I think being able to create a strong case for where you might want to consider driving your innovations. And we'll probably speak about this as well, how the government can support, because I also have a government hat I'm wearing. What utility options do you see available now that the room should be considering actively?
Awesome. So one thing which becomes quite interesting here is, someone said at the previous panel and the one before that about the opportunities around tokenization, tokenizing whatever one may be doing. You could figure out how tokenizing farms in the coffee space, what could that do? If you have farm assets, coffee assets, agriculture assets that you've tokenized, value addition assets that you have tokenized, if you look at the whole value chain and you tokenize it all along the way. So from that point of view, you're actually able to make the most of not just tokenizing, but also tracking and trust as well. And what that basically means is it brings down the cost of investment into those assets. It democratizes the ability for more people to invest in them, while concurrently enabling you to be in a better position to track your actual footprint, or your sustainability footprint, your carbon footprint, and other footprints, to enable you to access these markets that now have these barriers linked to what your carbon footprint may be. So it allows you to, in more ways than one, hit multiple birds with one stone.
So a lot of this sounds very idealistic, So sometimes I listen to Peter speak and I say, no way, man. Like there's many times I've been in conversations with people in the government and they're asking, show me the money. But there's a very huge risk element to tokenization, especially in these markets. And, how would you mitigate the risk around, the farmer just run? How do you get it to a point where it actually is believable? Because theoretically, it does make sense, right? Tokenize, have a smart contract in place, issue all these tokens, and it works. But how realistically, as a developer in the room trying to build up, one of those assets, how would they manage the risk?
It's in the end. Think about it this way: any currency with a reserve that is not fungible becomes very interesting. If you think of your reserve being gold, then your token is going to be relatively low risk and quite valuable. But you've got to ask yourself, what is the value of gold? Gold has a value. Then you ask yourself, all right, what else can have the same value as that amount of gold? So if we think about it, maybe, 100 kilos of coffee might have the same value as, I don't know, 10 kilos of gold, whatever. Just assume that was the case. Then in this case, your reserve is the coffee in your warehouses. Your reserve is the warehouse that stores the coffee. Your reserve is the income that's coming in from the forward contracts you have for the coffee, for the electricity generated by the solar panels on the roof of the coffee farm. You basically look at the entire value chain and look at wherever you can look at a revenue and value store and a revenue and value generator as your reserve.
Interesting. So when we came up, I would ask Peter a couple of questions, and he'd ask me a couple of questions. So I guess.
Awesome. So on my side, I'm looking at you now wearing your government hat. All right. Imagine you're the one with this tie.
Never gonna happen.
So, what is the government doing, to enable this space to flourish a little more?
It's a great question. We're speaking on panels, so we have a very interesting view from the SDI perspective around technology, and ours is, one, we have 4 pillars that we like to work on. One is infrastructure, human capital, policy, and investments. The SDI Secretariat over the last couple of years has done a bit of work around, one, the investment space. We've brought in a number of investors to engage with local innovators. I think we went from very few deals annually to about 10 deals last year, and this was part of our initiatives. The Secretariat actually does make direct investments into innovative companies, so we've made these investments. But we need to do more within the blockchain technology space in itself, and I do not like that the chairperson came back when you asked that question. What we could look at doing, for example, is, one, funding some human capital development, activities that need to be put in place. We could look at, we are working on fund of fund structures, but these would be domiciled locally and would be, in a way, technology agnostic. So it's unfortunate. At one point, blockchain was up there, and then AI came, and everyone forgot about blockchain. But I think the two actually do work together. So we're very open to working with the association. We're very open to investing public funds into some of the work that is being done, but there's a process to it that we'd have to go through.
Well, if you spell blockchain, AI is there in the middle, right?
Exactly. Anything else?
No. Then kind of, if you think about it and go, where do you see Uganda in the next 15 years?
So we have a very audacious goal as the Secretariat, and I think all of you should hear this very clearly, because you are going to be part and parcel of this process. The goal is to grow Uganda's GDP tenfold, right? So from $55 billion to $550 billion. And the only way this is going to happen is through development of knowledge-based goods and services and commercializing them. So you'll start to realize that our approaches are not only programming around output-based results, but actual revenue, right? So as departments, we look at what's your revenue target and how will you achieve that target, and work backwards to put in place activities to do that. So I'll share some examples. We're doing some work in the electronic space. Today in this country, you can go from an idea to a finished electronics product in Uganda without leaving, and that's some of the stuff we've done. So you have rapid prototyping, you have manufacturing facilities. We're even going upstream to look at components development, right? Because how much can we import substitute? How much can we locally produce? We're doing work around ensuring that procurement of government technology can be made through local companies as opposed to buying it externally, by financing pilots for many MDAs. So a lot of the work that we're doing is really, one, around identifying innovation, creating infrastructure or structures to support development and commercialization. I don't know if you saw this a couple of weeks ago. We held the Uganda Deep Tech Summit, and the idea behind that was, how do we get the world to come and think for us? So we brought in about 35 experts in academia, investments, and across the board to come into the country, run a conversation together to build strategies around deep technologies, and you'll start to see a number of things being done. There's a deep tech center of excellence coming up. We'll have an AI studio. We'll have an AI incubator. We're looking at compute. We're looking at cloud services for developers. And these are things that we're doing from a very entrepreneurial perspective, and you will have access to these as Ugandan innovators.
Something else, when I think of, different things that sit under the government space, linked to innovation, if I look across, not just at your ministry, if I look across at the roads, if I look across at agriculture, look across at health, even at mining, where do you think the work of this association can support, different government departments get across the line, where could the opportunities be?
So I can't speak for the whole of government. I can speak for the little department I sit in and head, okay? What do we want to achieve? So it's three things. One is productivity acceleration. How do you increase unit return per shilling invested in any industry, right? So what you typically hear, unfortunately, is conversations around applications, providing some form of utility, but doesn't move the needle very much in terms of increasing productivity. And that's a fun conversation, right? So I'll give you a simple idea. Think about the parish development model and how much money is being spent. How can the blockchain support this process? For example, right? Look at government initiatives and think through where you can fit in, and those are conversations we'd be very happy to have. I'll say something that we're doing, for example, in the climate space, and this is because it did make so much sense. We're working on what you call a carbon origination platform that will allow project developers start the process of registering their climate projects through to access to verification and possibly forward sales, which should be very interesting in terms of unlocking capital for local projects developers. But then there's the element of social safeguards, and how do we make sure that all the communities that are part of these projects, because at the core we believe that climate action should be led by the people who are most impacted, and not some guy sitting somewhere in Lausanne, making money, with some great monitoring software. They're part of the process, but there should be a clear way to do that. So what we're doing is trying to make sure that we can create structures that enable you to start, build, and commercialize or access financing. And the blockchain can come in very, very, very strongly on the social safeguards part. And I think, Mr. Chairman, if you started to organize hackathons around climate and the blockchain, like I've said, there's so many opportunities. There's a huge requirement for traceability, huge requirement for transparency, huge for all the things that you provide around climate action.
I mean, it's, I got a tie, so I'll try to chip in for the others. No, the thing is, if I think about the mining sector, for example, and I would think about the European Union's, carbon border adjustment mechanism, which is coming in play from about pretty much next year and the year after. Now think about what products are coming out of this market which are entering the EU, which could be affected, and the whole traceability side of things. And the fact that ultimately there's a lot of need, I feel, which will need developers in the room to go and have a chat with the different departments, different ministries, and figure out how whatever they are doing can plug into where the needs may be. If you want to make sure that whatever's going into the EU, be it a service or a good or otherwise, whether it's kind of gold, whether it's aviation fuel, whatever it may be, you just got to figure out now, how can you use the knowledge you have to help any product going in there know what its footprint is. And that becomes a massive opportunity to unlock value, which ultimately supports the business case. If someone's exporting and would have, if our trade with the EU right now is probably close to about €1 billion a year. If that, assuming that was going to be hit by a tax, which could get to maybe 10% of that, suddenly saving that 10%, that €100 million a year tax burden becomes an opportunity, and when people with a shop down the road realize that they can make a saving when they work with developers in your association, it becomes really interesting.
I think we're going to wrap this up because it's 5 p.m. I'm going to ask you one last question. Then we will both make some recommendations to the association around this chat, right? So, and you probably won't ask the question, but how much have you sold? How much has Mandula's Energy sold in carbon credits?
I think before he answers that, let me say that you have a question from YouTube. We have a YouTube stream live. The question is to you. What do you think about Bitcoin mining driving down the cost of electricity? And are you open to research collaboration from Ugandans on board with a similar initiative?
Absolutely, in both ways. What do I think about it bringing down the cost of electricity? It does bring down the cost of electricity massively because it comes down to the levelized cost of electricity. So think about this, all right? You put in $1 million to set up a facility, a quarter of a megawatt, that's powering a village. The village uses that electricity only, let's say, 6 out of 24 hours a day. Now, if you've got a way to make sure the other 75% of electricity is actually utilized, instead of the villagers paying maybe 30 cents a kilowatt hour to use that electricity a quarter of the time, you can spread that cost across and have the villagers maybe paying 15 cents only. So when the villagers are paying 15 cents, they've made a massive saving. But at the same time, your mining rig that would have, if it's a small mining rig, that would have paid 20 cents on the grid, is getting a 5-cent discount. So it becomes an interesting win-win by bringing on whatever can make a difference on the off-grid space. On the grid-connected space is even more interesting because there you've got, the government has over 1 gigawatt of generation capacity right now in excess, which, could be bought by people who are doing mining. Yeah, and that brings revenues into coffers, and the more money comes into coffers, the more development can actually happen as well. So I find it, an opportunity that would help definitely reduce the price, the tariffs of electricity in the off-grid side and directly to industries, but also it gives the opportunity for UEGCL and UEDCL, UTCL to figure out how to, bring those costs even lower. Because the more electricity that's sold, the easier it is to make the same amount of money or even more by charging less. And then the second one on research collaborations, we do actively engage in research collaborations. In Uganda, working closely with a number of universities and globally as well, and we're always happy to research further. We've got facilities operating where people are welcome to try out their technologies, try out their approaches without having to invest on the energy side because we've already got that in place. Yep.
I think from the government perspective, well, not the ministry, my department, I think we'd be happy to also collaborate. That's a very interesting, type project because if you can reduce the cost of energy, that is very impactful to our communities. So that would be exciting to also look at as a potential project. Back to my question. How much have you sold in credits? Because it's important, right? You're talking about all these really cool things, but how do we validate and make sure it's true? And then any 2-3 things that you think the association should do to increase impact and success of their work in this country? And you don't have to answer the first question, but
I mean, in terms of the first question, I'll just give an answer in terms of the riddle. We do have facilities operating in Uganda now in 6 locations. We're providing energy services to well over 120,000 people, and all of that work has not taken on traditional debt, but rather taken on, investment from forward sales of carbon credits, forward sales of renewable energy credits, forward sales of carbon removal credits, using interesting instruments that we co-develop with our buyers. So really, if you think about it, 6 sites running now, adding another 10 sites, and majority of those sites which will have well over 5 megawatts installed, all funded, over 75% funded by carbon.
Give us a number.
In the 7 figures of dollars.
Thank you very much, Peter. All right, so 3 things that you think, Reggie and the association should do. Peter actually committed to sponsoring, being one of the sponsors for next year's event, so hopefully you should reach out to Mandalis after this chat. But yes, 3 things that you think, 2 or 3 things you think they should do to increase their success rate.
Absolutely. It would be great to kind of connect the dots. So I see an opportunity to have this association working really closely with the Renewable Energy Association, working really closely with the different government departments and the National Planning Authority as well. I think there are lots of low-hanging fruits that simply come from people sitting together and figuring out how to connect dots. And so working together with the energy sector, the agriculture sector, the mining sector, the mining conference happens every year, the oil and gas sector. So kind of connecting those dots and making sure at each of those summits, you should have at least one session where you take a look at that industry from your point of view. So next year, it would be great to have you at the Energy Summit looking at energy from your point of view, agriculture summits and so on and so forth. People don't realize how easy it is to collaborate. Sometimes you've got to help them realize. And since you've got incredible brains in this room, it's, you might as well connect the dots and, link up the chain link in the fence, not just block it.
I think mine is pretty much the same. It's around utility of the blockchain, especially around the problems that we have in the country. Because it's unfortunate that I heard that the hottest panel in the room was the financial regulators panel, because we quickly see the crypto angle and the fintech angle. But I think there's utility way past that. That's very important. Government strategies around, they call them the ATM. So it's agriculture, tourism, manufacturing, and services. And I think solutions that can solve for those particular sectors give you government alignment. I mean, I'm speaking like a government guy after just 1 year on the job, but you look at it as how do you solve for...
Come back, David.
How do you solve for government's problems? And I think that would be very interesting for you as you build. Over to you, Udende. Thank you very much, guys.
That panel, in case you missed it, was actually quite fiery, but I think most of it was born out of the frustration from how people perceive regulatory frameworks is really just bottlenecks. So that, I think, was one of the key pressure points for many people in the room.
I have the same problem, and I should say it here, and I'm stating this as an entrepreneur. So this is not with my government hat on. So that's off. So now it's the entrepreneur who runs an embedded finance company. I think one of the saddest things in this country is the Financial Systems Act. It's important because there needs to be protection of the community and people. Yeah. But I think when regulation starts to stifle innovation, it becomes a very big thing. Because a few years ago, you had university students building fintech companies every day and trying them out. And yes, there is a lot of risk, but what is risk versus reward? Because if we see some companies being very successful, I think if I were to give a remedy, I'd say have sandboxes that work and let the sandboxes probably be at bank level. Because if you can get a bank to agree to work with you, that's super interesting, and let the licensing come up when it's proven, as opposed to saying that you must have a license to start. Because a lawyer alone who starts this process is 12 million shillings. The license is almost 20 million shillings. And then there's the time factor.
About 6 months.
And how much time will it take you to do anything? You're dead before you even start.
Yeah.
So it's very unfortunate.
True. And that's going to drive away the university kid who has the brilliant idea.
And mine is probably like looking at, despite all that, how could we look at that challenge as an opportunity? An opportunity to collaborate, an opportunity to aggregate and go, if it's 200 million to get started, even if 200 developers come together, how can we as an association create the frameworks that while the lobbying is ongoing to help, ameliorate the ecosystems out there, once you figure out how to thrive in a desert, the world is your oyster. So that's the way I look at it from an opportunity point of view. Being able to operate despite the challenges means when you go into another market where there are less challenges, you're flying through.
True.
Yeah.
But then again, you have to remember, there are no safeguards against human nature. Somebody will drink the sand because they don't know the difference. But I leave that to you. That's food for thought. One more for Peter Benha-Nyako and David Gonahasa. It's been a most engaging conversation, fireside chat. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, everyone.
Yes, you spoke about the need for innovation, and to talk about the second innovation program, the Blockchain Association, welcome Edwin Remigabo and Edlin Murunji, please.
Can we leave, please?
Was your cue? I was buying you time such that while they're looking at me talking, you guys just fade. They want to beat a diagram. First beat a diagram, then you go.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's a pleasure to be able to speak with you today and share some thoughts as the outgoing chairperson of the Blockchain Association. So my name is Kwame Rugunda, and I was the founding chairman of the association. And I was asked by the team organizing the Blockchain Summit to share some thoughts. First of all, I'd like to congratulate the new team once again, Chairman Reginald and his team, Edlin, Daniel, Sule, and the entire new team. I'd like to thank you for taking leadership at the association, but also for organizing this Kampala Blockchain Summit.
So we'll be
There's maybe about
fast
3 things that I can say as the summit winds up. First of all, it's to thank all those who have been involved in organizing the summit. I'd like to thank the Blockchain Association itself, the partners, and all the stakeholders who've been involved in organizing the summit. I also know that there's been an army of young people who've been running around.
We are piggybacking from the David and what they've mentioned on innovation and what do we do next? Who is the next Satoshi? And we had the first edition of the Blockchain Innovation Program 2 years ago, if I'm right. And we want to launch the second edition of the Blockchain Innovation Program. So before we go into the second edition, Edwin, can you tell us what was the first one? What happened? Where did it go? How did it end? Do we have a new Bitcoin or Edwin coin? What happened with the first edition?
Thank you, Edlin. I have a feeling Reggie intended to put us here together. Our names sound very alike. Did you notice? Edwin, Edlin?
I have a confession to make. So my dad decided to use ease in the family, and I do admit we have an Edwin. So it is possible. I know why they're rhyming. Yeah. No, we are not related. That was a joke.
Okay, so my name is Edwin Remigabo. I'm an investment professional and also a partner at Capital Survey. It's an honor to be here, first of all, listening to everyone. The bright minds here, wow, the sessions have been lovely. So getting straight into it, the first cohort of the Blockchain Innovation Program, it was designed to introduce East Africa's young entrepreneurs to blockchain with an aim to inspire and equip them with skills that were required to turn that knowledge into real-world solutions, as you've been listening to the previous speaker. So for the first cohort, Capital Survey partnered with the BSV Blockchain Association, and together we brought 50 promising talents. And I'll repeat, 50. I was very surprised myself.
50.
50.
Okay, excellent.
So these talents came together for a 10-week program. It was a rigorous program covering blockchain developments and business essentials. So the participants benefited from structured lessons. These were online sessions that were delivered by the BSV Blockchain Association. They also benefited from real-world meetups. So we organized physical sessions where we met them to mainly provide them with knowledge on business essentials, as these are young entrepreneurs. And then there was also a final hackathon where they pitched their ideas. And we had a winning project. It was a very exciting savings and investment platform called LOA. And the whole thing behind LOA was lower transaction costs, blockchain. So this project really was meant to facilitate retail investing in the capital markets and the real markets of Uganda, including government securities, equities, real estate, leveraging blockchain to keep the costs of transactions low and enable micro-investing.
Thank you, Edwin. So what I see is an opportunity for, first of all, developers, right? Yes. But there's also business and finance in there. And we are, the main takeaway is that these summits and these conferences are not just avenues to talk about what's existing, but to also create a forum for future developments and to have something tangible come out of the conference or of the summit. So the second edition is coming, and this Blockchain Association of Uganda is taking center stage. Of course, Capital Survey is still a partner, and BSV Blockchain Association is championing. Just a second. Is still a champion. And it's going to be very similar to the first one. It will be announced on the website, Reggie, if I'm correct. And we are going to have more participants. And as they say, second edition is bigger and better. So if you're here, please sign up, watch out for the ads. If you have someone who you know who could be interested, please let them know. If you're online, please, again, sign up and be on the lookout for these, for the second edition. Is there something else that people should know about the second edition that we have left out? Any questions about the second edition of the innovation program?
No, I think personally, before the questions come in, just to say something a little bit more about this and where we see it as Capital Survey. We believe, one, in providing an all-round education here. And we did talk about the business essentials. That was one thing I was very involved in, teaching these young entrepreneurs on how to value the company, how to raise capital, because these are very essential skills that they need. So we provided an all-round education. And this program aims to just do that, to unlock Africa's youth through technology. And as we know, Edlin, Africa has a very young population. Over 70% of the African population is under 30. And so this presents us with a demographic advantage to really drive technological transformation. And I was very excited to hear Patrick, I don't know if he's still around, talk very incredibly about Uganda and what it can offer. And this is what we believe as Capital Savvy. So would like to encourage the private sector players around, the public sector players, to also get involved, to support us in the future programs. I know this will not be the last as well. We thank you, Blockchain Association of Uganda, for getting on board. And I believe that we can foster an ecosystem that benefits both innovators and industry leaders, because we're going to develop skills that are going to be picked up by private sector players. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Edwin.
All right, there's one question over here.
Okay, thank you. My name is Sarah Gemo. I'm a software engineer. So I would love to find out about the program. Do you have like age limits? And also for people to be enrolled, do you have to have some background? Maybe you should have a degree or something for you to actually be enrolled? And also what support do you offer after the program? Maybe job placement or finding for them opportunities or internships. What else do you offer after the training? Yes, I think that's it.
Sarah has very serious questions. Any other question? All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. So I can just take a few and then Edwin will also take the others. In terms of do you require to have a degree? Not necessarily. However, people who have a background in certain tech that they've learned, maybe JavaScript, that would be just an added advantage. But no, there is no requirement to have a degree. And the program does offer, as Edwin mentioned, a holistic education, if I could put it that way. So yes, you'll be trained in tech, but you'll also be trained in business evaluation. How can you do a pitch? How can you actually become an techpreneur and move your product from something that's just an idea and into the market? Because ultimately we are trying to have a forum where people can actually have businesses that thrive and have employment, put food on the table. And in terms of job placements and the rest, I would like Edwin to take that.
Yes, thank you, Edlin. Yes, the program offers a chance to the winner to, with a proof of concept, get financing to implement their winning idea. And talking about the first, the winner of the first cohort, this person partnered with Capital Savvy, and together we're working on the solution which he came up with. So indeed, there is something more beyond the program, but also it is a chance to get exposure. And that's why I was talking about the private sector and the public sector getting involved, such that it's not only about the winner, but exposing the other talents out there such that they can be or get opportunities to be placed in these organizations, because there's so many things being done out there, and yet the skills are also out there in the market. So we want to have a program that's matching this supply and demand of this kind of skill. Thank you.
Thank you. Anything else? Any question? Okay. Okay. Yeah, so we were supposed to just be here for 3 minutes. Rudende told us remarks, and we have spoken way too much.
You have made a lot of sense. Thank you, please.
Thank you.
So we encourage you, please apply, and I hope that the next winner will actually be something big. Like I said, we want to see the next Satoshi and the next big thing that's going to have regulators back here. I did not say that. So thank you very much.
Please also check out the website, bip.capitalsavvy.pro, to get some more information about the previous cohort. Thank you.
Very important. And look out for the ad when the next cohort is going to be taking place.
Okay, and they can find that on the website and on your social media as well?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Blockchain
Yes.
Association, BSV Association, Blockchain Association, And if you have signed up, you'll also be receiving a prompt.
Oh, okay. All right. Thank you very much, Edwin and Edlin.
Thank you.
Between the two of you, who do we call Edu? Who do we call Edi?
Ladies and gentlemen,
thank you very much. Let's read one more time for Edlin and Edwin.
Speak with you today and share some thoughts.
Let me tell you, today they have beaten pictures. Please. For everybody else who is on the outside, please do come in. I see Thomas and company, please come back in. We have a very significant part of our program, which is fast coming to an end. They are beating the picture. Thank you very much, sir. You got the smiles, eh? Very good. I'm going to invite the president of Blockchain Association of Uganda to stay here because he has a very important recognition to make. Reggie.
Thank you, Moses. Hi, everyone. I can tell the energy levels are going down, but we're almost there. I would like to take just 5 minutes of your time before we get into the closing remarks. My brother George from the CFA Society East Africa. I think we also have a message from the founding president, my good friend Kwame Rugunda, with whom we worked very closely. And then we'll close. But before I dive into one of the nice surprises we had for the day, I would like to invite my brother, Thomas, from the BSV Blockchain Association to join me. And the reason is a lot of what we've been able to do on this summit, a lot of what we did in the Blockchain Innovation Program, we've had the BSV Blockchain Association as one of our anchor partners. And so we recently, very diligently, as we took on leadership a few months ago, started having conversations around how to collaborate with both associations to go beyond what we already planned. So I just want you to take just 2 minutes, just tell the team what are the themes we're looking to achieve together, and so that they get to know what we're planning.
Thank you, Reginald. Thank you again all for being here. So one of our main objectives, as I mentioned earlier, is to make sure that the underlying technology that we build is used. That's the main objective, right? And that's why we partner with the Blockchain Association of Uganda to launch some pilot program, and Kaipeta is a good example of it, to have private companies using our open source components so that they can run their business. So that's the first objective and the first initial discussions that we had. Obviously, the second objective is to create a local and to animate a local community, but we don't do it. Reginald is doing it, and we are more than happy to help and to support by supporting this kind of events. One of the other objective is the educational topic. So what we want also to achieve is to create as many academic partnerships as possible to support by creating content, creating online certification, and to help by providing the content, and we can also provide some financial resources as well. So this is an important objective, because if we really want this technology to be adopted, we need to make sure that we create the educational content, right? This is the most important topic, because if you want to build business on top of this technology, you need to understand the technology first. That's why we also encourage you to go to our website when we have some online courses that you can learn how to build on top of our technology. But what we want to achieve with Reginald and team is to provide the content for the specific needs of Uganda businesses, right? So we are looking for requirements or pain points that we need to solve, and we are more than happy to provide the content for that. And then the last topic that we discussed, we have a network of different venture capital funds, and Patrick here is a good example of the kind of stakeholder who are also present in our ecosystem. So obviously, it's not directly through the association, but we are more than happy that to loop people in this kind of funding opportunities. But I encourage you to directly go to see Patrick. Obviously, we want to make sure that the businesses that will be funded obviously has to use our technology, to leverage this technology, to make sure that they can create sustainable businesses to solve real-world problems, right? That's also the idea of this partnership. So that's the different discussion that we had, and I also wanted to thank Reginald and his team for the great event organized. I think you brought very, very qualitative speakers, but also people in the room. I had some very interesting discussions, so thank you for that. You can feel the maturity of the topic, and you can. It's also very fortunate to see different representatives of the central bank, the different financial regulatory bodies, but also private companies representing the network. So thank you again for you and your team.
So the blockchain innovation program that we spoke about, that my team earlier spoke about as a second edition, they are one of our anchor partners, and we look forward to onboarding as much partners as we can, but thanks to them, we're able to run a lot more. The access to the tools and the online education and access to resources. You spoke about what next, access to such forums where you're able to meet people who could finance your business. And the DNA of the program is to look for entrepreneurs and not necessarily job seekers, in as much as that's respected, but we're trying to drive an entrepreneurial spirit just to deal with our challenges. Growing population, like Edwin said, young population, like he mentioned. And so how do you deal with all these things? You can't have enough jobs. You have to have an entrepreneurial mind to be able to do more and solve our real problems. So thank you, Thomas. I would like you to stay with me because I would like, so as an association and as a summit, we decided to come up with an award. As you heard in the last regulatory panel, it got heated, it got very interesting, it also was very informative. But it's very easy for us to know who has been the most proactive stakeholder from a regulatory perspective. Doesn't mean to say the rest haven't done as much. We just think it was important to us to sort of have an award for who we believe has been the most proactive ecosystem supporter or stakeholder. And this award goes to the Financial Intelligence Authority. So, so would represent Sharifa, who sat on the panel. I would like Idlin, could you please join? Idlin George as our partner from the, please join. Edwin from Capital Savvy, please join. Any other panelists? Patrick, please join. Let's honor Sharifa and her team. Any other panelists, speakers still here? David, they must be in the lounge. Yeah. Where is Awel, the summit coordinator? Still running around. Bolo, please join. Alex, my friend Angus. Angus, please join us quickly. Any other panelist speaker? Anyway, so Sharifa, to you and your team, send our extended gratitude to your executive director, his deputy, the entire leadership. This is a heartfelt award, and it's from the Blockchain Association of Uganda in partnership with the CFA Society East Africa, the BSV Blockchain Association, Enduro Coffee, and Capital Service. So thank you for your work. Excellence in virtual assets research and policy framework in recognition of your exceptional contributions to the virtual assets industry in Uganda. Goes to the Financial Intelligence Authority. Congratulations, Sharifa.